welcome to the Old Man Orange podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
And before we really get started, I want to give a little shout out to, I know I mentioned this when I was on their podcast, which was it seemed like a month or plus ago. It was a while ago, maybe even almost 2 months. That's how long time goes. But it finally went up, the episode, but on the Round Earthers Society podcast with Zach and Jesse. I think it was episode 18 I'm on there. But go check those guys out. They're really funny. They got good stories. They got kind of a little bit different podcast thing. It's almost like a Jay and Silent Bob Get Old thing, where it's like, I think it's like one of the guys is trying to get the other guy. It's almost like he's got kind of depression and issues and, substance abuse and so on. It's almost like one of those where it's like, hey, we'll come on the podcast. We'll have fun together and we'll kind of fix things. We'll talk about things we like. And that's kind of what it's like. So it's almost like a psychology kind of thing, but comedy still.
That's pretty awesome.
So yeah, they're really cool guys. I'd like to get them on the show at some point because, yeah,
And they're called the Round Earther Society?
Yeah, they're called the Round Earthers Society podcast.
I like that. It's like you have to, like we're at the point now you got to distinguish
who you are. But no, they're really fun guys. Yeah, they like movies and all the good stuff too, and have fun. You know how podcasting goes. Very rarely do you run into somebody in podcasting who's like, oh, I don't like that guy.
Yeah, very rarely does that happen.
Every once in a while there'll be some podcasts I do listen to of other people's, or there'll be somebody that comes on as like a guest, and I'm kind of like, God, this guy's very hateful. That's about like the only time I've already noticed it. And then I go, you know what? I'm just gonna turn this off. And that's still pretty rare. But every once in a while there'll be somebody that's just kind of like, I don't know.
There's the only thing. We've never really had anybody on the show that I don't like, but it's been long enough, and I'm still cool with them, so I can probably say it. I'll say the only time it got kind of awkward, because he was more of like, I didn't really know him that well, but he was still a friend, was when we had Jeremy on,
like
2 or 3
episode.
It was about probably 3 years ago, and it was one of those things, because me and him were both on Marley's podcast at the time, and the way it would work is, because there is 4 of us. There is Marley, Kelsey, Jeremy, and myself. And the way it would often work is, me and Jeremy would usually agree with each other, and Marley and Kelsey would usually agree with each other. So I was like, you know what, I want to bring, and I got along with Marley and Kelsey fine, but I was like, let's bring Jeremy on our show. And then I was just like, oh, he doesn't get along with Spencer's. At least not that didn't things get too hostile, but it was just like the second he made a joke about Resident Evil 4 or like the original Resident Evil games.
I think we're at Resident Evil, yeah, like 5 and 6.
That's where when he said something like I love those games. Like he's like, that is adorable. I'm just like, fuck. I just sank down. I'm like, I'm gonna wait for this one to burn out. I'm just nothing I can do. And you were really reserved, but that was one of the only times. And it wasn't over anything very deep or very political. It was over Resident Evil.
Video game. Well, the funny thing too is and I see Jeremy every week because I go to the movie theaters all the time and that's where he's working at. And it's weird. It's we talk all the time. He's he'll come up and be like, dude, and give me a hug and everything like that. We haven't seen each other for years, even though we see each other every week. I see him more than I probably see anybody else. So I get along with him, but he just had that kind of it was that moment where it's just oh, you got a super positive person who likes things a lot, and then you got classic almost negativity coming out of let's bash something just because we can. It's that mashup was not the greatest, I guess. But no, overall he's still a really good guy.
Yeah. That was the only time I just got I'm just gonna sit back. I know this was my idea, but I'm gonna sit back over here and let you boys straighten it out.
Yeah, exactly. We'll call it good.
Keep it above the belt. Keep the mothers out of it.
I think that's about it. That's where I noticed that if I get in because I'm almost the most optimistically positive towards things. So every once in a while, there's people out there that maybe they enjoy almost the critical side and almost the negative side, and even I mean that sounds kind of bad, but you know what I mean. People that that. That's where I almost don't mesh nearly as easily. Because really, at the end of the day, if there's a podcast I'm listening to and it's just you get one of those guys who's really negative to movies, I literally will turn it off. It's one's nope. Even if it's other guys on there I like, it's if there's one negative guy on there, it's I don't know, you know what I mean? Because I think to me, I just get to the point why complain? You know what I mean? We get movies, we get video games, we get comic books, we get regular books, we get all sorts of cool shit. why should we be complaining at all about any of this? All I picture is like, we could be like, living as slaves under Egyptian rule. I'm pretty sure none of those guys were getting cool shit.
No, not like, they're getting probably some beer. That was about it.
Or we could have been like...
And a loaf of bread.
We could have been like fucking Spartacus in Roman days, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're like, shit, the most exciting thing you can do is fucking break free and fight some Romans off until you get captured once again, until you're strapped up on the fucking, like, entrance to Rome.
Well, when it comes to film criticism and all that kind of stuff, and listening to people bash on movies, it's one of those things, like, I can listen to some film, like, because I listen to Double Toasted, and I don't always agree with those guys, but I like their personality enough, and they have fun, interesting conversations. So it's kind of like, even if I don't agree with them, I can probably... There's sometimes like, I really don't agree with you guys on that. But it's not like, oh, fuck these dudes, fuck these guys. But there are those out there. Like, fuck, I'll say it. I can't stand... It's fitting because the name. I hate everything. I can't fucking stand that channel, because that is literally... Because if you legitimately don't like something, and you just kind of got to get that out there, just like, all right, here's my one thing... One movie I fucking hate. Like, there's a YouTube critic I sometimes check out named Chris Stockman, something like that. And he's usually very cordial, he's kind of chill, laid back, but he'll like give like a very in-depth film analysis of whatever movie he sees. And, he's not like too textbook but the one thing he absolutely despised, he's a big anime fan, he despised Dragon Ball Evolution, and that was the one thing. It was like, fuck this shit, I want to fucking burn it. So everybody has that one thing where like, fuck it, the gloves are off, and I understand that. It's just when your channel is dedicated to like, oh my god, what is this? Oh my god, this is so stupid. When it's that constantly, it's like, this shit's getting old.
Well, yeah, and to me, it's just like, that's just easy. It's just like, it's like making fun of a retarded kid at school. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you don't do that. Like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's like, how would you pick on somebody your own size? It's like that. I think that's what I feel like when you're being negative. It's taking the easy one out. You know what I mean? It's like, he's in a wheelchair. Yeah, because he's not going to get up and whoop your ass. That's why you're making fun of him. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean when people start getting negative on movies and video games and so on like that. And granted, yeah, everybody can always have the ones they don't like, because no matter who you are, there's going to be something you just don't like. And I almost feel like the more positive I sort of get towards things, I'm going to get to this point where I'll be one of these people who's like, oh, dude, he actually talked negative on it. How can you even trust him anymore? Like, all I have to do is like not like something, and I feel like I would be on like that opposite end. But still, it's just one of those ones like, why? You know, at the end of the day, like, that's how I think about it. Like, why hate things when, they're there? I mean, they could not exist, and we could just not have anything to entertain ourselves, and we could just be sitting by campfires looking at each other. You know what I mean? And I go...
Making eye contact.
Yeah, making awkward eye contact. And cowboy ended up in the bushes, but other than that, it's like...
There's multiple meanings behind that. So
yeah, there's a lot of things you could do with that one.
Just like, if you're sitting across from man in the firelight in like, 1870, like, want to go cowboy up in the bush, like, well, you gotta clarify, Jarvis. I understand what you're saying there. Like, I think you know what I mean, Bob.
Need a little boot scoot boogie. Oh, and that's what it is. It kind of.
And he just goes over there. One of them's just like adjusting his horse properly. The other guy starts sitting on his pants. What the fuck you doing? Like, I'm cowboying up. We deal with horses. What the fuck do you think I'm doing? Like, all right, shit. Fuck.
I thought it was, time for, man-on-man action. Don't make eye contact. That's what keeps you. That's what keeps you safe. Keeps you safe in the Lord's eyes.
No, we ain't in Texas.
But also another kind of little shout out. This probably will be up maybe by the time our episode's up, anyways. But I was on Wes from Via VHS's podcast, and he wanted me to come on. He's like, "You want to do a Godzilla 1998 one?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I want to do Godzilla 1998." And this is a perfect example. When I told him, I'm like, dude, I'm glad you brought me on this episode, because I don't think anybody else would have been good for doing the Godzilla 1998, because everybody would have been so negative. It would have been easy, like, let's jump on board the hate train. And for me, I'm like, you know what? I like Godzilla fucking 1998. Is it the most perfect Godzilla movie? No. But at the end of the day, it's a cool movie. The age I was when that came out was amazing. You know what I mean? The special effects were out of this world. I think the Godzilla looks cool in that movie and everything like that. Like, I really like that movie, and I've watched that movie like over 50 times in my life. I've seen it probably more than most people. So I was like, perfectly, like, I was glad to be on that episode.
Ironically enough, I'm not a big fan of what's that director's name?
Oh, Roland Emmerich.
I almost said Roman Polanski. I'm like, that's not it. Roland Emmerich. Yeah, no. I'm not the biggest fan of Roland Emmerich, but that is one of the few movies where I'm like, even though I know a lot of people hate it, I'm like, I like that one.
Yeah, it's a fun movie, and it's cool, and it's like, you know, there's cool stuff used in it, and it's going for a classic kind of monsters-type movie just done in the 90s, like... So I think it's just one of those ones like when people are stuck in like they're like, that's not Godzilla, that's too different. It's like, well, yeah, you got to open your mind. You can't be closed-minded going into things and just take it for something different. I mean, you got fucking 40 other Godzilla movies, you know what I mean? Why can't you have one be slightly different at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: my favorite movie of his is probably Stargate. And, you know, I like Patriot.
Patriot.
There's Patriot, just the line of, but we're paid. Like, sure you are. That whole thing, like that aside from that, I get it, you know, it's the 90s, they're trying to, like, enforce, like, oh, no, he's a good guy, see? Even, they're paid. He's progressive. He's a progressive slave owner. But, you know, generally most of his movies aren't for me, but it's one of those things where I actually... funny enough, like that movie. But I always felt really bad for the old man who's out there fishing. Like, oh, I got a big one. The only thing you're going to catch out there is a cold. Oh, you wait and see. And then he's like, help me! He's like running against the gate. And you don't even see him die. You see Godzilla raise out like, oh, that old fucker's dead.
I love how there's just those, like, two old crusty hobo guys that are fucking sitting above this guy, like, over there, like, oh, it's old Bob out there again. What an idiot. They're almost like the two Muppets sitting in the top of the house. The old men that like own the place, you know what I mean? They're just there just to hassle this guy's like he's probably thinking in his mind, he's like, you know what? I should go somewhere else, but you know what? My entire life I've come to this dock. I've come here with my father. I came here with my kids. I ain't stopping because of these two fucks up here.
He's all, they're just like, you're gonna lose that fish just like you lost your fucking wife. Oh!
Like, why'd you guys go get a job? Oh yeah, real original.
Got a job reminding you what a fuck up you are. Oh! Got a job? That's probably what your wife said. Oh wait, she's dead. Oh!
It's just like he tries to go up there and attack them, like they're behind a fence, so they're like you can't do anything about it.
It's like that Pokemon. If it was just Waldorf and Stadorf from if it was just them there, just like no explanation, like, oh, that's fitting.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I always felt about those like hobo guys on there. But no, it's like overall I've always loved Godzilla 98. I always just thought that was a cool movie, and as many times I watch it, I always like to say, like, you know, Pizza Boy's fact right here. That's where I got the Audrey name from, was from Godzilla. Never heard that name before that movie.
Really? Audrey?
Yeah, oddly enough, that's where I pulled that name from, is from that movie. Out of all movies, that's where it comes from. Not like it's based off the character. I always liked that name from watching that movie, and it's just like, you know, and that's Audrey's a name. Nobody's fucking named Audrey on the West Coast whatsoever. You have to go to fucking New York and find Godzilla to find that name.
I kind of got like a really weird miscellaneous movie named the way. I have my comic Into the Dirt, which it's going to come out eventually. Can't say when. Still working on it. Halfway done with it. Main character in it is named Corbin, and I never hear anybody named Corbin. But what gave me the idea was another sci-fi thing, Fifth Element, because Bruce Willis's character Corbin Dallas.
Oh yeah. Well, I always think that. I see James Corbin. I know it's spelled a little bit different, but the old actor. But yeah,
it's James Corbin. Maybe it is. I don't know.
I do not think it's James Corbin. Oh, I think you're thinking of a different guy. You're thinking of the late night host. I'm talking about the actor. I guess the late night host.
Like Duck You Sucker, all that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just funny how like sometimes just how, you know, names sort of stick with you. And I think when you're a kid too, especially when you like never have heard certain things before, it's like, you know, where are you gonna hear these like, you know, Brooklyn like names, you know? And it's like, in a movie, where else? Godzilla.
Yeah. That's a good point, because it's always... I never really heard Audrey in a whole lot of places, so...
No, and it's like, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you anybody else that was named Audrey. Like, I couldn't tell you another movie or another location. I've heard it before. It's not like... Oh, you know what, except for I take that back. I think in Woody Allen's... I think his most famous one, I almost want to say that like the girl might be named Audrey, and I could be wrong. Or it's in one of the Woody Allens. Where that sounds like a Woody Allen character name anyways.
It's in New York, too.
Yeah, it's in New York.
I'm assuming it's New York, but it's Woody Allen. So Godzilla is a really formative movie for you, then.
It is. Well, shit, I've seen that movie probably more than, like, most movies. It's like, Well, because one, like back in the day, my dad just loved it, and like we'd watch it like all the time. We'd be like, Dad, what movie you want to watch? Godzilla. Oh, okay. Whip that VHS in. And
VHS had the textured thing, so you could feel the scales.
yeah, and the other big thing too is I think that was like one of the first movies I remember ever getting like the actual physical copy of it, not taped off TV. And it was like I almost want to say literally day one. You know, there might have been some Disney movies or something like beforehand, but it was like a big deal getting that Godzilla VHS.
Well, there was also that really weird. I mean, there's some good songs on the soundtrack, but there's some big bands. There's like Rage Against the Machine.
It's like it's an original
Day.
Rage Against the Machine song too, which is kind of interesting.
And then there is also like, was it it was a song made just for the movie? That's always kind of weird when that happens, especially with Godzilla of all things, with Rage Against the Machine of all things. And then they had this song that Puff Daddy did with Jimi Hendrix and I think Tom Morello.
It's not Jimi Hendrix, it's Jimmy Page.
Not Jimi Hendrix. Fuck. How can I forget? Yeah,
it makes sense.
Jimmy Page.
Similar time period.
Same era. Jimmy. Yeah, I meant Jimmy Page. Yeah. No, they resurrected. They Necronomiconed him just for Godzilla the movie.
Exactly. Well, it's like it says it's like with Jimmy Page, and it's like it feels almost like more like he just ripped the riff from Led Zeppelin, but I'm not too sure. Maybe Jimmy Page shows up and does some like solos throughout the song or something like that.
Well, it sounds like they just sampled it, and maybe this is at a period when Led Zeppelin would not really let people use their music, so maybe they just said, "Hey, do you want to come in and do a song?" Like, all right, we're gonna do something that I've already done before. It's really easy. Da na 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 done. Out.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. It's got a weird, like eclectic kind of like '90s track. There's actually some cool stuff on there. It's not the greatest soundtrack, I don't think. And the weird thing is like when I look at that soundtrack, and I was even listening to it the other day, just because I was like, oh, you know what I mean? But like most of those songs, I do not even think are in the movie, or I don't even know. I could not even tell you where they are. Hey, I don't even know where the Rage Against the Machine song is for the movie. Like that movie has just like soundtracks, you know, scores other than like I'm singing in the rain. And I'm not even too sure if that's even on the soundtrack, to tell you the truth.
It's probably not, more than likely. Well, the thing with that is, okay, they have the Wallflowers. They were a pretty big one. Puff Daddy featuring Jimmy Page. Oh, I thought Tom Morello was in there. I guess he wasn't. Rage Against the Machine, No Shelter. That was a big song. Days of okay.
Oh, the Days.
You know what?
That's a good band. What's that? Days of
Days of the New.
Yeah, Days of the New. They're cool. They're kind of like that. Like probably the band that would have opened up for like Soundgarden and everybody.
Well, here's the thing. Now that I'm kind of looking at it, it's one of those things where, Foo Fighters, Fuel. Mm-hmm. There's a moment. Fuel is literally just a moment right there. It's one of those things where now I'm looking back on it. You have like your 4 to 5 big bands, then you have your 2 or 3 bands that oh yeah, those guys, and then you have a bunch of shit like I don't know who those are. That's the way a lot of those movies were. A lot of those movie soundtracks were. Silverchair, remember that name?
Yep.
Fuzzbubble, don't know them. And when people might say you fucking idiot, that guy's the bass player or the lead singer to whatever big band, but Joey Deluxe, Deluxe Deluxe. So.
I think sometimes how a soundtrack sort of goes is you get a handful of it to be like, you know, bands that are kind of big, you know, I mean, like Rage Against the Machine at that time period would have been fucking huge, and, you know, P. Diddy and, you know, things like that. And then I think it's also like whatever company making the movie, they can kind of go, well, we got these up and coming artists, let's put them on there too, and maybe they might be a big deal, and maybe this will give them some publicity.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also, I think that like, because if you look at them, I remember back when, Remember back when Funimation was re-releasing newer Dragon Ball movies? There's the thing, well, I guess newer at the time. There's the thing where it's like, okay, here's the first 3 to 4. Mm-hmm. And now it's like when Dragon Ball was in its full swing. And they had it come out, and I think it was around like Cooler's Revenge, Lord Slug, like those ones.
Okay, yeah.
They would take one big band, drop it in the movie, and they threw in a bunch of random shit no one knew to kind of like, oh well, it's a good thing to put on like on your resume for when you're touring. Like, oh, I see you did a soundtrack song for Dragon Ball Z, Lord Slug. It was because I remember they had like, it was a total like you know, some of these bands were legitimately good, but then there are the ones that are like the total like late 90s or like early 2000s like angry kid rock band. Like it would be like featuring music by Pantera. Like, oh, that makes sense. Disturbed! Like, all right, you know. And then, or then it'll be like something like 9 Inch Nails, or it's the song that's on the Matrix soundtrack that I'm drawing a blank on. Deftones.
Oh, Deftones. That was the thing too. Is like the second that I was listening to like the Godzilla soundtrack, I'm like, I haven't listened to the Matrix soundtrack in a while. It's like, and that's almost like feels like it's like a prototype to the Matrix soundtrack, the Godzilla one. It's like leading up to it.
Kind of. Well, the thing about the Matrix soundtrack, 'cause this is a big deal to me, that was the first soundtrack I ever had that bought a parental advisory thing on it. And I remember going, like, you know, this is back when, I mean, I still, you know, did chores and got allowances and all that. But it was one of those things where your parents are usually there when you bought something just because they had to drive you to Best Buy or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, okay, we're ready to go? Yeah, ready to go. And I go up there and almost making, like, hard eye contact with my dad, seeing, like, what he's going to do. I just put this Matrix soundtrack
Slap
on
it down.
I put it, like, making not like a challenging thing, but kind of like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Let's see what happens. Lock eyes, put this thing down, slide it over the cashier without looking at the cashier, just looking at my dad.
Just you like slide a Kids Bop CD just right over half of it. So it looks.
No, he would probably talk to me like, we have a talk about this Kids Bop bullshit. That's what he would have done. But the Matrix soundtrack, I remember, because, like, you know, the first thing you turn on is
I think it's like Marilyn Manson.
It's Marilyn Manson. It's
just the new shit. It's pretty much like probably the main reason why it got a parental advisory.
Yeah, and I remember just turning it on, just going from being this nerdy ass kid who listened to, like, you know, Smash Mouth at the time, you know, like, not unironically, just like, like, Smash Mouth is my favorite band, to, like, putting on the Matrix soundtrack, and then opening the opening riff of that song. Uh-huh. I just were turning it down, just like, oh shit, hope they don't know, you know? And then just like, he said fuck. So that was like a big deal when I first got that album. But then, looking back on it though, it's like, okay, so we got Rob Zombie, we got Marilyn Manson, we got Rage Against the Machine, Deftones, and then after that, a bunch of really weird, random techno stuff. And
then there's just the soundtrack score that's, like, interlaced into it, too.
There's the Club to Death song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got some interesting stuff, but it's like in that similar kind of vein as the Godzilla soundtrack. It's technically, you know, by itself, it doesn't seem like much nowadays, but it's almost like a good gateway album for, like, a kid, because that will, you know, give you a bunch of sweet bands if you just didn't know them. If you didn't know who Marilyn Manson was, Rob Zombie, Rage Against the Machine, and so on, it's kind of like that. There's some pretty strong bands right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, it also had I had Dave Navarro's short-lived band Monster Magnet.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Had them on there, too. See, those are some of the other things, too, is you find those kind of bands that, like, on those soundtrack CDs that maybe they only had, like, one album or so, but it's like, oh, they have a really cool song on that soundtrack.
Well, it's like, another one I had, which wasn't as, what's the word I'm looking for, impactful as Matrix soundtrack. Remember, I got the Spider-Man soundtrack. This is at a point where I went from listening to a lot of bad music and just to go into kind of like soundtracks, then going on to generic hard rock at the time, and then from there, classic rock, and then kind of picking and cherry picking what I like out of all that to what I am now. So at the time, though, it was kind of like all movie soundtracks, because that's how I learned about shit. And Spider-Man soundtrack, that was one of those ones where it had like 2 songs from the movie. 2 or 3 songs were actually in the movie in there. And then they had like 4 or 5 big bands. They had like a hero can save us.
Chad's gonna come out and stop 9/11.
They had the guy from Saliva that really says what fucking time it was as the backup singer. It's just like, he comes in, like, I remember in the video, there's a part, because they're all, like, on a rooftop rocking out while Spider-Man's all swinging around. And part Spider-Man's swinging around, he's looking around like a hero. Like, oh, fuck, there he goes, look at that.
He's like, was that Chad Kroger right there? Shit.
Mm-hmm. And that one, Spider-Man's like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, why are they having a concert but nobody's there on this New York rooftop?
They ain't the fucking Beatles, come on.
Yeah. And
then you got Aerosmith doing the Spider-Man theme song, which is pretty cool.
That was the last one in there. That was like such an... They were doing a bunch of movie soundtracks at the time, and that was such an easy paycheck for them. Like, you want us to do a song for the Spider-Man soundtrack? Yeah, I want you to do like a big, cool, epic rock ballad. Like, how about you do the Spider-Man song? We'll make it like 30 Like, we'll make it like a minute long.
Yeah.
Well, we were kind of hoping for something we can get some radio play, something we can do with that. Like, hey, yeah, I like Spider-Man. We'll just do this out. Well, don't worry, it'll be cool, it'll be fun. Like, they just do it, they just crank it out. Like, okay, that'll be $5 million. Fuck. All right.
Well, it's like after they started making that Armageddon money, and that song still gets played to this day. So it's like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's like they could probably all kick back on just that one song only. Shit, they got a bunch of other music, but the Armageddon one will always get them money.
Mm-hmm. How often that gets played in a mall or something?
Yeah. Just anywhere almost. Because it's like every once in a while you'll just hear it somewhere. It's like, oh, there you go. It's probably like I'd say in the top like 3 most played Aerosmith songs. Because it's the Aerosmith song that will get played on actually another radio station other than classic rock and like, regular rock.
Mm-hmm. I never even hear Aerosmith on... Well, I don't listen to classic rock stations anymore, so that's probably part of the reason. But, I mean, they're still out. They still got a tour. I imagine they still tour, probably.
I think so. It's like, I don't know. I know Steven Tyler was doing his own thing for a while, and sometimes that kind of stops it. But I think every once in a while they'll come back and do the Aerosmith tour. It's like, I don't know. It's like after that one time that it took so fucking long to try to get to see Aerosmith because everything known to mankind was going wrong. It was like they were either not showing up in California, or Steven Tyler had his throat cancer, so our tickets got refunded, or another show didn't happen. Then we finally got the one where it was Motley Crue and Aerosmith, which was totally awesome. But it took me so long to see Aerosmith for a while.
I'll be honest, I like Aerosmith more than Motley Crue, but that show, Motley Crue, I think put on a better show.
You think so? It's like, I thought the Motley Crue part I thought was actually really cool still, but they were kind of like quick to the point. It was like, no, this is Aerosmith's show. Because I thought it was almost like one of those like 50-50 shows, but it's like, no, you're opening up for Aerosmith. Don't you fucking forget it.
I think it's at the time I still like Aerosmith more, so I guess I was going in expecting more from Aerosmith. So what I got from Motley Crue, I was like, oh, that was cool. And Aerosmith, like, oh, that was still a good show. But I don't know, it's one of those things, like they're one of those bands, like there's a handful of bands that they were like probably somewhere in my top 10 when I was like in my early 20s, and now it's like I don't even really put them on anymore. I mean, if they have a song that comes on random on my iPod or whatever, cool, but I never really go out of my way and look for their music anymore. I don't know, I think there's some of those bands you just kind of like, I'm not sure what it is, I just went through a phase, or I don't know.
Yeah, when it's like, I wouldn't use like the word like outgrow or anything like that, but it's almost like, I think it's almost like you sort of burn yourself out on them. You go through all their albums, you listen to all their hits, you listen to this, and then next thing you know, it's just like, though you still like, it was like Aerosmith's one of those bands like that too. Like, I don't listen to them all the time. I can still throw them on and really enjoy it actually. And once in a blue moon I will, but it's one of those bands that there was a period where like in the high school, it was like Aerosmith was like fucking, yeah, top 10 easily, I would have said for sure. And it's kind of like The Doors is another band too. Like I love the living daylights out of The Doors for a long while, but nowadays it's like once again I could throw The Doors on and I'd still like it a lot, but they're not in my top 10 anymore. They're probably sadly not even in my top 30 even, almost nowadays. But doesn't mean I don't like appreciate them. But I think it's just like with music, it's almost like you go through like a wave of like just going into like new bands and you just constantly got to kind of find new stuff. Like you can always appreciate all the classicness that you've built up underneath you. But, you're always reaching out like, what's something new? Sometimes it can be just an old band you like has a new album. Cool. But at the end of the day, sometimes you want, something just pure brand new or a completely different genre or something like that.
Well, it's weird because Rolling Stones is still one of my favorite bands. I haven't really got tired of them. But granted, first off, I really love their music. Secondly, I think they have just such a huge body of work. And Aerosmith is a big body of work. But something about, there's that period of the Stones where they're putting out like an album every year. So... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they got quite a bit. That's the thing about the Stones. You got like 40 albums to choose from, so you don't really run out of tunes. There's certain like Stones albums that I know I've like probably only scratched the surface on. Maybe listen to them through maybe once, or that's about it, maybe even. So
like Voodoo Lounge, where I'm like, I don't have any like late 80s, early 90s Stones. Let me get Voodoo Lounge. I'm like, this was a mistake, but it wasn't one of those things where, I'm going to suddenly boycott the Stones because they did this one thing I don't approve of. Yeah. Some fans get really touchy about that kind of bullshit.
No, I totally, I know what you mean by that. But yeah, sometimes there's some of those albums like, well, there's a reason why this album's not talked about nearly as much. But every once in a while, too, some of those albums are really cool. So you never know what you're going to find. Something kind of funny. Last Wednesday or something like that, we went and saw, they had Clueless playing in theaters. And I was like, hell yeah, I got to go see this. And That's one of those movies that, like, I remember when it came out. I didn't see it in theaters when it did, but when it came out on VHS, I remember my friend Liz, who was my mom's, like, best friend's daughter, like, she brought that over, and, like, we watched that, like, probably, at least week 1 of when it came out. I almost want to say she brought it over, like, the day it came out, because it was, like, right away. And that movie right there, it's amazing, and watching it again, that movie is almost like one of the most, like, definitive 90s, like, experiences you can have. Like, even though it's about kind of rich kids, granted, if you look at, like, as a whole picture, like, if you want to explain to somebody what the 90s was, you would just whip them a copy of Clueless. There's some other movies you could throw in there too, but shit, that movie is, like, dead center, 1995, so it's got, like, as 90s as you can fucking get just jammed in there, and just even some of the explanations, because that movie, the good thing about it almost, like, explains to you, and I think it's explained to the audience for, like, all, like, the 70s and 80s people at that time period, but almost, like, for a future audience, it almost reworks it, because she almost, like, narrates, and Alicia Silverstone's, like, explaining it, that you could kind of get the 90s from her perspective.
It's been so long since I've seen that movie. Remember when I saw it, I didn't like the movie, but I remember I hated her character just because it was literally just the super entitled, like, whoopsie, I just hit a hit and run, no big deal, I'm a pink chick, don't fucking worry about it.
Yeah, well, it does have that kind of thing, because that's the thing, and it's like, they try to make it feel like, oh, she's just, like, even on the poster, it says something like, she's like every person in America, or something like that. It's like, no, she's not. Shit, she lives in a fucking mansion. You know what I mean? She has a computer that picks out her outfits before she goes to school. Like, at that time period, that's like fucking James Bond shit right there. You know what I mean? Like, and Bond doesn't even have one of those things. Like, and I think that's like the kind of movie stuff, because you see it in 80s movies a lot too, where I feel like they put that in there because they're like, well, kids are going to watch this and be like, oh my God, can you believe it? She's got a computer that picks out her outfits for her. I so want that. And it's almost like weird science, I guess you could almost say. It's like, oh my God, you see those kids fucking created, a woman out of their computer, which, when you think about, like, 80s computers, it just sounds so weird, but it's that sort of, like, just that little bit of over the topness, I think, they try to, because sometimes there was a time period, I think, where, and it's still to this day, where I think it's one of those ones, like, granted, you probably got poorer people watching the movie, but it's almost that thing where some people are going to look and be like, man, I wish I was Richie Rich, None of us are Richie Rich, but, you could go, if I had a Burger King in my house, or whatever the hell he had, a McDonald's or a Taco Bell, I can't remember what it was, like, think of the possibilities.
I think it was like a Pizza Hut or some bullshit.
Maybe it was that. It's because he had a fast food restaurant in his house, and there was the fat kid who was like, you got a fast food restaurant in your house? That's the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen! Richie Rich, I'll suck your dick to live here! Just, like, he was, like, so enamored.
That's the deleted scene.
But as a kid, though, you do watch that kind of stuff, and you're like, shit, like, maybe if I had a fast food restaurant in my house, like, things would be different. Like, it crosses your mind. As you get older, it sounds stupid when you say that, but as a kid, though, that was what you would think.
I remember going to see that movie. I mean, it was a comedy movie starring the kid from Home Alone. So as a kid, I wanted to see it, but I mainly wanted to see it, and it's the most random thing, most random reason why. They had a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner short in front of it called Chariots of Fur, and I was a big Looney Tunes fan. So I mainly wanted to see the movie for that reason. And then watching it, realizing, because whatever reason, whenever they say advertise it, I'm like, oh, these are two feature-length movies they're throwing together. And then I'm like, oh, that shit was a short? Like, I didn't put it together. I didn't realize it at the time. So I'm like, all right, well, now I guess I gotta watch this rich motherfucker, drives it over remote control electric bee or whatever, or I don't know. That movie, I remember the whole thing with that movie was like, money can't buy happiness. But it'll be the reason why all your friends want to come hang out with you, though.
Exactly. It's one of those kind of issues. And even like in Clueless, because, it's like, once again, it's about, I guess, like, if you're poor, you relate to Brittany Murphy. That's who you relate to. You relate to somebody who will kill themselves in the long run. So I don't know what that's supposed to mean for poor people, but...
Wait, the character kills herself in the movie?
No, Brittany Murphy killed herself in real life.
Oh, was she the redhead?
Yeah, she's the redhead. She also plays Luann on King of the Hill.
Oh, she killed herself? I thought she OD'd or something.
Well, OD.
I guess it's still killing yourself.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it meant suicide for a second. Okay, maybe it was.
That's what I thought it was more in the suicide category, but So once again, if you're poor, that, and then there's also the other poor kid who's in the movie. There's the guy who's like got the long hair. He's like, yeah, you skater, whoa, like that guy. He's like totally that.
Of course, he's the poor kid.
There's the one poor kid. It's like, how are you in Beverly Hills? Like, my dad, he got a job. What is he? Well, he's a janitor, but hey, gets us a place here.
We don't have to live in the streets and fight them off at night. Fight who off?
Haven't you seen Assault on Precinct 13? That's what it's like every night if you're not in a rich Beverly Hills house.
Them. Like, you just peeks around the corner. There's just like some like guy with some Manchurian Candidate expression just peeking around the corner with a bandana around his head and a baseball bat. Like, oh God, he's found me!
There's like that. That'd be hilarious almost. But so it's like that. That's like your the people you get to relate to if you're poor is that kid who's like, at the end where like Alicia Silverstone's like, he does have potential. He's actually he stopped doing drugs and he's out skateboarding for profit. Good man.
Well, I haven't seen the movie in so long, so I can barely remember aspects of it. I just remember there's this point where I think it kind of comes in waves. Now that movie, I mean, granted, I don't know. The way I remember a lot of 90s movies, not all, but a lot of 90s movies, I remember it being kind of like, maybe not, maybe it's half and half. I don't know. I feel like there's this thing where it kind of shows you where you're at. We're not obviously where everybody's at, but we're like, most of America is at in their life. So say something like Clerks.
Mm-hmm.
You got Dante, it's a day in a life, and he's just this guy, this schlub trying to get by. Or, even though this is more like early 2000s, something kind of like Waiting, where it's just people doing this job they don't want to do, and the one thing they got to look forward to at the end of the day is them just going to a party, drinking, smoking pot, whatever. And then you got these comedies that I don't know if people may like them at the time, but in the long term, I don't know if they resonate as well, or if it's the ones where people are like, don't you wish you were over here? Like, I feel like even though this is more of a TV show and not a movie, something like Friends, because I think that was my thing with Friends. It was just like, fuck all these yuppie ass people.
Well, and I think with Friends too is it must relate really well if you live in the city and you have like a good, because that the target audience of Friends is middle class people that live in the city and they're in their 20s and 30s and they're just like making money and just sort of living it up and don't have a whole lot of worries. That's the target audience of Friends. See, and it's like for me, it's like the reason why like I don't like it's like you can watch an episode of Friends and it's not that it's not funny or anything like that. It just I never felt like I could connect with those characters. Like I need poor people that are up to shenanigans, almost like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like that to me is more relatable because I'm like, look, these people like literally are like almost living in the streets. They're like 2 steps away from it, but somehow some way they make it to get by. That's my kind of audience right there, or my kind of like what I need in something. And it's like, I can still watch something, like, because, I really still like Clueless. At the end of the day, like, I like that movie a lot. Like, granted, yeah, she is super fucking rich and, like, overprivileged and, really, I feel like can't relate to a whole lot of people. At the end of the day, I mean, yeah, there's always going to be rich kids in the city that they're going to be able to relate to it, but I feel like, you take America as a whole, I feel that's not a whole lot of people at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay, LA, San Francisco, New York, Miami, so on. Seattle, what have you, but does that like translate as well to like everything else in the dead center?
Yeah, well, I think there's also that aspect of kind of, I think you could have a movie with people that are probably more well off and are privileged, but still kind of walk away with something out of that. Because the thing I remember about Friends, I don't really remember a whole lot about Friends. I just remember they were just a bunch of yuppie ass people that were kind of annoying to me. I don't remember a whole lot about Clueless. Kind of the same thing. But I do remember, like, aspects... Because, all right, you got a movie like, say... this might seem a little random. 500 Days of Summer. Mm-hmm. There are a bunch of younger people that are clearly well off. I think they live in New York or whatever. And they seem a little yuppie-ish. But I think the story of that movie is good and says enough. And it's a very well-made movie. I think I'm able to look past all that and kind of see something that I can relate to. So I think something... I don't remember Clueless that well, like I said. But I don't remember a whole lot other than all the cliche early 90s rich girl shit, Valley Girl type thing.
Yeah, and it has that, but it's like, I don't know, I think it's still really well put together. I mean, I like the director that did it, because that's the same lady. She directed Cameron Crowe's Fast Times at Ridgemont High. She did European Vacation, and some things like that. So it's like, that's kind of interesting, which is funny because Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I feel like that's one of the few ones that's about like kind of like poor regular people. You know what I mean? It's a teen comedy where nobody's really fucking rich in it. They all live in regular fucking houses. You know what I mean? Like, the main character of the movie's like fucking like not even middle class. You know what I mean? It's Spicoli. If you need somebody who's really poor, I guess you got your Spicoli character to relate to. But by comparison, it's not that far of a difference between him and the rest of the characters.
And then you got something like other Cameron Crowe movie. Say Anything? Was it Say Anything?
Oh, yeah, Say Anything. Yeah.
Say Anything, because the girl, she was a rich girl, but she wasn't like a snob. She wasn't a prude or a snob. She was just kind of very sheltered life, and her father was trying to pamper her. And then he got busted for, I think it was extortion. And everybody else are all these kind of like delinquent characters that he doesn't want his daughter hanging around. So in that movie, still kind of walks away with some. That's still one of those movies that we're just like, okay, here's showing you probably not really how do I put this? Not so much of what people, I don't know, because there are obviously well-off people in this country, but I guess I feel a lot of media shows you, don't you wish you had this, rather than, oh, here's something that probably a lot of people do have, you know?
Yeah, I think that's sort of it, because a lot of times whenever it's like, sometimes I always have a problem with some movies, like whenever they show poor people are always delinquents, they're always drug users, they're always thieves and robbers and so on, like, and that sometimes always kind of bothers me a little bit. It's like, when it's just like, why can't these people be, there's like, why do I want to? It's like, I don't have any care for these rich people. Actually, the poor people, I feel like, deserve to rob these rich people. Robin Hood style, goddammit.
That's why I didn't care to see The Purge, because, like, don't worry, we're a bunch of rich-ass white people living inside of a nice, tight house that nobody can get into. And it's just like, you got all this crazy shit going on, you're focusing on these people? Let's fucking focus on people going on outside. That's like the reason I don't care about the first Purge movie.
Yeah, and those are one of those movies where it's like, they just never have jumped out at me or something like that. And once again, I know this kind of comes around again to, like, Clueless being kind of like about these rich people, but what I almost like, the real takeaway I like from that movie, and it sounds so weird, but it's like, I mean, I know, granted, it's classic to me just in the sense that, like, seeing it as a kid and so on and just being there, but it's just like, I love just like almost like the aspect of watching it is like a historical piece on 90s lifestyle. You know what I mean? You know, just include, like, it's almost like she's the rich character that kind of has, like, the view on it, and her black friend's also super rich too, but everybody else, though, and you just kind of watch it, and just, like, when it goes into describing, like, you know, like, when she describes the men's, like, attire at that time period, because that's the one where it's, like, everybody's got backwards hats on, grunge rock hair, just super baggy pants, and so on. I'm like, yep, that was the 90s. I remember, like, you were not cool unless you were wearing baggy pants in the 90s, so you made sure you got all your clothes in fucking large, no matter, like, how old you were.
I guess it's weird when you reach that point. You grow up in a time period, and then suddenly you look back at a movie that takes place in the 90s. You didn't put it together then, but now you're like, oh yeah, it was definitely a different time.
Well, it's funny, because I was saying about Clueless, too. I'm like, shit, that was like the last time that color was vibrant. Because past that movie, color goes out the window, and we've been black ever since. We have not had color, really. I mean, I'll say this. Past the emo point, there was a point where color was surging back into stuff. Because I remember when we were, like, kids and in high school, when you went to go to buy a t-shirt at the store, you had one color to choose, and that was black. You never found blue. You didn't find red. God forbid would you find pink or green or anything like that, unless you're looking for, like, maybe, like, workout clothes, or I don't even know at that time. I don't think I even, the idea of buying workout clothes as a kid never would have crossed my mind, so I can't say that. But that was all there was. Every shirt was black. You went into Hot Topic, it was all black. No choice but black. You better like black, because that's the only color you're getting.
I'm just thinking about, like, because so much color in the 90s to the point of, like, yo, we overstocked and made way too many barrels of bright orange, pink, neon green. Like, all right, let's just get a aqua-colored shirt and use the purple for like, some weird, crooked triangles, and then get the pink for, like, some random zigzags. Yeah, that sounds like a good design. We'll just, like, switch the colors around, mix match it, throw those on a t-shirt. Oh, okay, that works.
It's because the 90s had sort of this, like, almost, like, hippie vibe to it kind of going on. It was, like, definitely a resurgence of, like, 60s kind of, like, styles at that time period, and just having really off-the-wall stuff. Because that's what... I mean, you look at, like, a Pauly Shore movie. Shit, that's, like, exactly what his design is. He looks like he's, you know, opening up for Aerosmith.
Yeah. coming in on his stupid little Vespa back in, like, Encino Man.
Yeah, exactly. And really, Pauly Shore's like also, he's like the poor character for you to sort of relate to. You know what I mean? Because like in all his movies, it seems like his parents are never there for them. They just kind of like send him off and hopefully see if he comes back. Maybe he doesn't come back. Who cares?
He goes home, his dad just punches him in the fucking gut. Where were you? I was hanging out with cavemen, Dad. Bullshit!
Puts his fucking cigarette out on him. Ah! That's why he goes over to the house and he's like, you mind if I stay here and eat for dinner? No, Pauly, we don't mind at all. Or Stoney, I think his name is in that one. Be like, good. I really don't want to go home. It's just like an awkward pause.
Just Dad's like, wearing a scarf like a fucking woman?
If you want to be a woman, I'll drop you off on the street and I'll be your fucking pimp.
How's that sound?
Could use a paycheck once in a while from your poor ass.
Not like you ever have anything to contribute to this fucking family.
Every day I gotta work at the fucking mill to pay for your lifestyle.
While you ride around in the back of a Vespa of that kid from the Goonies.
Can't trust that kid, damn it. He's gonna try to adopt a man, I know it.
What makes you say that, Dad? He just seems like the kind of man that looks at another man like, I should own that.
And then if he doesn't like it, he's gonna probably put it out on the street like some wild animal and just say, get out of here. You don't belong here anymore. I just could tell it in his eyes. He's one of those kinds that's gonna use you, fuck you, and leave you on the side of the road.
Also seems like the kind of guy that only likes a girl after she gets hot.
Yeah, doesn't like her when she's in the bathtub with her, apparently.
That was the thing, because we talked about this on the audio commentary years back when we did that, but that was just one of those things where it's just like, the main character was just so unlikable, because he was just like, we were best friends back when we were kids, and now, I realized one day she got hot, and I really just like her, and now I like, he's just such a shitty fucking character. Just a horrible fucking person.
That's sort of like what 90s movies were. It's like they'd take someplace in Los Angeles area, and you would just have almost like sort of douchey characters that like you were supposed to, I guess, I think at the end of the day. I mean, I like the movies around it, but a lot of times you just think of the main characters in some of these movies, and it's just like, they're not the greatest people. You know what I mean? It's like, in Clueless, she does, I guess, sort of have a somewhat, she's not like a terrible person, but she is very like,
Clueless.
Yeah, Clueless. It's in the title, So she doesn't understand, like, almost everybody else around her at first and so on. And she's got, like, this kind of proper way. And, her dad's a lawyer, so she's got business capitalist, like, background going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to the whole thing, I guess we should probably move into the big thing, I guess we're going to talk about.
The big thing!
The big thing? Well, I guess going into, like, something more interesting just about shittier characters, or like, when they're like shittier, tougher characters rather than the rich, prissy characters. Example, Solo.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Here's a poor man. Here's somebody who didn't get any handouts in life.
Now I'm gonna say this. I think it was last episode, or maybe episode before last. I was saying like, you know what? I'm looking forward to the movie. I'm not really dying to see it, but I want to see it. So because Star Wars is coming out every year now, so it's hard to get as excited for it. That being said, though, I'll say off the bat, I thought this was a pretty fun movie. I didn't really... it's not one of those movies I think that needed to happen, but even though it did, like, you did something good with it. And it's one of those things, it's not even so much like the... you guys did that. It's one of those things I see. They answered this question. And then other people like, I didn't want to know. Why do you got to show that? I'm like, well, it's a prequel. What do you kind of expect,
I don't know. I thought it was a real solid picture. That's what I thought. It's like, in watching it's like, everything about it was fun. It had good action in it. I will say it was kind of dark. I don't know what it is. Speaking of like less color, that movie felt like the whole way through it just needed the brightness to be turned up a little bit.
A lot of gray and brown.
Yeah. But overall, though, like, Solo was pretty darn cool. And then the best part of it all was seeing Darth Maul at the end. Really, that made me more excited than anything else.
That's also the thing I'm surprised I haven't heard more people complain about yet, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah, I'm like, but that to me right there was like, yes, finally they're acknowledging the prequels. That was what I've been waiting for, is for them to finally kind of like say, hey, the prequels happened. Don't shove that off in the closet and like act like nothing's ever been done. So the idea that Darth Maul's coming back is amazing.
Well, here's the thing. I just hope that this movie, because the way it opens up is, I'll say, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a pretty fun movie. And I'll probably even get it on Blu-ray when it comes out. But I will say it does this thing at the end. At first, I thought we're just watching one movie. And then as it goes on, it ends on this note, like, there's more to come. And it's one of those things where I hope that is the case, but I'm just hoping that people don't get all Star Wars fatigue or something. Like, I hope the sequel actually does happen. I hope it's not like a setup that they were never going to get around to, you know?
And it probably will be. It probably won't be that far off, knowing about it. Probably you'll have episode 9 next. I know they're talking about the Boba Fett movie, but maybe that Boba Fett movie actually is Solo, too.
It might be. Well, because Rogue One was definitely its own standalone movie, where this seems like it is its own standalone movie, and then it goes off, they drop all this stuff. It seems like it's laying down foreground for sequels. Because I don't think they're going to try and do the Marvel thing, where, I mean, I guess you could, to some extent, I see how the Han Solo movie leads to the Boba Fett movie, but I think it's going to be more of one of those things, like, okay, I think we're just going to get Solo 2, possibly, but who knows. I will say, though, it's one of those things, the movie's going on, when it gets down to probably, I want to say, like, the middle heist, because there's the first heist, there's the heist they do to get those canister things, and that, like, spice mine.
Well, then there's even before that, there's, like, where Han Solo joins the military, and he's, like, and he meets Chewie, like, in space Vietnam.
Oh, yeah, in Space Nam, yeah.
Because that's totally what that was. I mean, they're not, like, in a jungle, but, like, it just felt like it felt totally like Apocalypse Now. There was just chaos going on. Nobody had any idea really what was going on. People didn't even know what they were really fighting or anything like that. And I almost kind of liked how it never really showed what they were shooting, just for the fact that it gave it that weird... It reminded me, there's that scene in Apocalypse Now where I always like this one a lot, where, like, they show up and it's nighttime, and not Michael Douglas, but
Martin Sheen,
and he goes up and he asks one of those guys, and there's this black guy who's just on this turn, he's just shooting, he's like, bah, 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 bah. He's like, what are you shooting at? He's like, I don't know, man. Boss just told us to shoot at something. We're just shooting. And it's just like that kind of thing, like you're just shooting, but you don't know what you're even doing anymore. That kind of aspect of Vietnam, and I think that's almost like what it kind of reminded me of there, is just they're fighting this war, and there's chaos going on, and they're in the trenches, but they don't know. And I like it's like when they throw like Han Solo down into like the fucking like pit down there, and he's got to fight Chewie. I'm like, that was cool.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the brightest guy in the world. When they first threw him down the pit, and I saw like a fuzzy foot, first like, oh shit, it's gonna be a Wampa. And then like, oh yeah, right. Fucking Chewie.
You're in the same boat. That's exactly what I thought too. It's like, oh, it's I don't know why I did not put two and two together that was Chewie, but that was my first thought when I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, that's what it is. What else would it be?
That makes sense. That makes a lot more sense right there, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, it was like, well, at first, like, it's like, I don't know, it's like, oh, they threw him in a Rancor pit before they even threw him down there. It's like, where's he going? It's like, why is that pit so big?
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But it was also one of those things where I was just going to say this part. The only part of the movie that seemed kind of like to slow down for me a little bit. Maybe I need to see it again. It's when they're in the I want to say it's the third heist or something, or maybe the second heist, and they're in the spice mines. Just for whatever reason, not that part was boring, but it just something about it just seemed a little like, I don't know, kind of dragged on to me. Something about that whole part, maybe it was the scenery, maybe because there's already so many areas they're at earlier that were kind of brown and kind of mud colored, so maybe that was the thing. But something about that part was just kind of like, all right, let's speed this part up. But everything else in the movie,
I think it's like right past the train part, that movie does slow down. That's about my like one thing I did notice is right after the train scene, which is cool. The movie's, it's not that it's bad, but it slows down, and I feel like it almost needed like a little bit more of a trip going on. Maybe that's what it was missing, just a little bit. In Star Wars movies, I think you need a lot of change of scenery.
Yeah, definitely. And they go to a lot of places, but a lot of these places look kind of similar. But I guess they're trying to keep it with like more of a Western kind of vibe. That's probably why they choose more like colors like brown and whatnot, or sometimes even snow. Like, I'm going to say a lot of these environments actually seem like they would be Western environments, even the snow one, because, you know, you get a couple of those Westerns like Jeremiah Johnson or something, or Hateful Eight that take place out in the snow.
Well, and Han Solo's always standing in like a drawing position. He's just like Western ready.
Yeah. And so we'll go into like more of the layout of the movie in a second here, but I will say though, there is that thing that like that people get really touchy about, where it's just like they don't want to know. Like it's like, oh, so we're gonna see how he like oh they're gonna make a big deal about how he got his gun. I'm like, well, I mean, it's not one of those things that I really need to know how he gets his gun or how he gets the dice or how he gets the Falcon. I don't really need to know it, but I'm not going to be mad at this movie for showing me that. Because I've heard a lot of people kind of complain about that kind of thing. Like, some things are best left a mystery. I'm like, well, I mean, when you're going back in time, I feel like it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, really.
Yeah, I kind of agree there. And it's like, I'll say, like, yeah, getting the Falcon, I feel like, yeah, that's big enough, because the Falcon's pretty much a character in itself for Star Wars. Like, getting the gun, it's like, well, okay, I guess you could kind of have that, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. That could have been like, oh, he went down to the store and bought one, you know?
Yeah.
He came out and he shot a bunch of police officers up with it. That was the first thing he did. Can't you believe he got that gun easier than anything else?
Well, I do like how they show why the Empire's there in the first place before the Rebels even align. Because when you see that planet that he's on, and it's all like this weird, like it's this water planet with like little industrial islands that all are kind of held together, and it's just a big giant ghetto. And him stealing a car, and then going to like a Muppet, like a water snake Muppet. He's like, "You stole some shit from me," you know, or whatever. And well, if people are going to bitch about Boss Nass, they're not going to bitch about that thing. I'm going to say that right now.
Well, it's funny because there's always things, I notice this in Star Wars movies, there's the things that people don't like in Star Wars movies. Like, you know, like maybe like Boss Nass, I've never really heard somebody say like they really hate him, but like characters like that, or like Jar Jar Binks, but it always makes me laugh because like in the Star Wars movies that always come after it, there's always something that like is the exact kind of character. Like in this movie has like a Jar Jar Binks character in it. I'm not like, and I'm one of those people like I probably hate Jar Jar Binks like way less than like most people. Like I don't actually even hate him. I'll say I'm about like dead center in the middle of him. But this
what SJW bot?
Yeah, the robot kind of reminds me like there's still like that's like the Jar Jar Binks character of the movie. And I don't think it's not bad, but the character's kind of weird. It's like it's got like on paper it sounds kind of cool. Like, oh, it's a robot that's like literally like trying to fight for robot rights. Well, that sounds kind of interesting, but the way it comes across almost seems I don't know what it was. I thought it was a little weird. It was just like, and then the robot two's like, yeah, I'm trying to fuck Lando. He's trying to fuck me, believe it or not. Like, oh, okay. Shit.
I think that whole thing with the robot is you kind of got where it was coming from as far as just like robot rights and all that, but at the exact same time, I think it was also trying to be somewhat satirical about how intense certain SJW people can be. I think that's literally what that was supposed to be right there, because I think it's also just it's so confident and it's so like I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's really in tune. I'm gonna say it's so confident, like, oh yeah, Lando wants to fuck me. Well, I think Lando really cares about it. But then again, Donald Glover, who was doing his best Billy D. Williams impersonation, and he was perfect casting.
I thought so too.
Lando,
because that was the thing I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for Lando to come back. That's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and I thought he fucking nailed it in this one. I wish he almost had a little bit more action scenes, but other than that, though, he was cool.
And I was glad. I hope they bring Lando back, because Donald Glover, that dude's just unfair for how talented he is. He's a good stand-up comedian. He's a good actor. He's a writer, director, and a great rap artist, too. So, it's almost like, Jesus fuck, dude, slow down for a second.
Yeah, exactly. He's just everywhere and stuff. But he kills it in this movie. I was really impressed with that because, yeah, as I said, Lando's always a cool character. I hope in episode 9 they finally bring back Billy D. Williams and we get that going, but...
Mm-hmm. And, but no, I'm surprised because these new Star movies seem a little bit more aware about certain things, about like just inside fan jokes. I'm surprised they make some kind of Colt 45 joke. I mean, not a brand Colt 45 joke, but something, you know.
Oh yeah, guess I could have done that.
Not saying you'd have to or anything. Not saying I was waiting on that, but they just seem to get because there's even the Han shot first there. Like that was a total like this will shut the fucking fans up, and then at the exact same time though, there's one person rolling their eyes like, oh yeah, of course he shot first.
Yeah, exactly, because that's always kind of a goofy one. I always thought like, yeah, whatever. George Lucas wanted to add an extra little laser blast in there. What's the big deal?
No, I think I like the idea of him being, so cutthroat. He says, fuck it, I'm going to blast this bitch away. At the same time, though, it's just one of those things where when people I think that was the first time he played with it, went back and played with the stuff. And like, wait, what did you do? I think it was the first time, so that's why people remember that one the most.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like the first scene you see that's like, wait, that's slightly different. Uh-huh. And all it is, it's like, he just adds a laser blast in. That's all it is. There's nothing else in there. There's just, instead of being just one laser blast now, there was two.
Yeah. And but going on to the movie, so he's this guy who he's just, him and his girl are trying to get off this planet, and he's just stealing cars, just doing small jobs for like this crime boss and the on this planet. And the way it works is the galaxy that doesn't have the strong Empire presence is essentially ran by crime lords and syndicates.
Yeah, so you're almost probably, and see, what I kind of like is it's like, I like when they start to add these elements in there, so you can kind of see why people actually might like having the Empire around, because the Empire will clean up the problems of crime, and it will kind of put it back a more stable environment. You know what I mean? Because like the old Star Wars ones, and I know that's what they're going for. They're going for old school, like good, bad, black and white, no in between. But I kind of like when they start adding the in between stuff in there, like kind of showing like, yeah, there is a lot of good elements to the Empire. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not the greatest people, but they also keep a lot of stuff in check. And here's the thing, probably if you accept the Empire and you live in the Empire's like world, it's probably great. You know what I mean? If you're probably in the dead center of like living in an Empire city, it's probably fantastic. You probably got, great public transportation. You probably got all kinds of protection going on. You're not being invaded at any point or something like that. There's probably
Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. There's probably a lot of real good benefits about being with the Empire. I think it's when you're kind of in like the middle management section or the outskirts, because that's what I almost liked about this war scene that they had too. Because it wasn't like the nice shiny stormtroopers running around. It was literally like the war that the Empire didn't want the average people to see. Like, they weren't going to televise this one. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, we're just going to get some ragtag guys together. They're not really military guys, but we're going to give them like quick training, whip them some guns, and go send them to this planet to try to conquer it.
It's also one of those things where I thought this was kind of interesting. When Han first sees some propaganda for the Empire, they're playing the Darth Vader theme, but it sounds more triumphant. Like, it's the same song, but they change the beats around just a little bit, and it sounds more like a triumphant song rather than a scary song.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of neat too, and it's kind of playing on like the little, like, whatever you want to call that, like the 3D TV thingy-majiggy.
Hologram thing.
Yeah, hologram TV. That's what I was looking for.
So they're trying to get out of there, and it's just basically trying to do odd-end jobs that pay very little, and a job goes bad, so he just tells his girl, Kyra, was her name? Kyra? Something
I think so. I just think it's the chick that played Sarah Connor. That's all I saw.
Oh, that's who that was. She looked familiar. Okay.
I was like, oh shit, it's Sarah Connor.
So he goes to her, and he's all like, all right, fuck this place. We're just getting the fuck out of here. Because he managed to snag, they had like, it was like hyperspace fuel or something. He had a small little sleeve of it, like, this isn't a lot, but it's enough to probably bribe someone to let us in through the gate. So they get in through the gate, and at the very last minute, somebody kind of gets through, and he gets separated from them, from his lady, and from there going on, he's like, okay, well, she's separate from me. Chances are she's alive. I'll join the Empire so I can get a ship and then fly back here and find her.
Mm-hmm. And it's like 3 years later, he's still fighting the war. It's like he doesn't even get there yet, but he still has that ideal in his head that he's going to come back. And then he, finds Chewie in Vietnam, and they decide to go back together. Or he's like, he's like, Chewie, come join. They become friends, and it works real well the way that I think they do. It's kind of like just two guys stuck in a kind of crappy situation coming together. And
then from there, because they always implied that he was a deserter because he had like Imperial pants or something like that, like Imperial officer pants or something. Mm-hmm. Which I'm not sure if that's one of those things, like if George Lucas intended that, or if that was like, oh, these are the ones that are going to fit Harrison. The smuggler pants game didn't work, so here's some Imperial officer pants. Just going to put these on.
Yeah, those are those kind of things where I feel like probably that might not have been there from the initial point. That probably just kind of like, oh, by coincidence, those pants happen to look the same.
Yeah, or like if he intended that himself, or just went with it. Well, going back to just the Empire for a second, the whole thing with the Empire is just all the kind of Nazism stuff of it. But the thing with it is, I think that's almost, because expanded universe stuff, which I haven't really dove deep into, but kind of looked into a little bit. I think coincidences of filmmaking at the time when the first ones came out, all the officers were always a bunch of humans in stormtrooper outfits, because like, well, we can't be trying to create new aliens every other scene. That's going to take a lot of fucking money. So just throw them in these white fucking costumes. Mm. And then expanded universe stuff jumped on that. Like, Oh, well, the reason is humans are mostly run the Empire. The Empire, they're very racist and they're kind of elite, and you have to be a human in order to. If you're not a human, it's really hard to move up the ranks, and that's kind of like one of those things they get across in like expanded universe shit.
Yeah, well, I can kind of see that. I bet you that once again, at the end of the day, that's just like kind of keeping it simple. I mean, they probably were supposed to be going with like, oh, it's the humans like kind of rights kind of group. Like, yeah, you could be an alien in the Empire, but you know, you're
gonna be scrubbing that toilet for a while before we give you a gun. Trust us.
yeah, like one of those points. But still, it's like being under Empire rule, though. Pretty good, huh? Don't have to worry about anything. Don't get those, no drugs on the street with the Empire.
It's one of those things where like you see why someone in his position would find that appealing. And then even this is the thing where I kind of understand some of the criticism for this part. The reason why he chose this, because he comes up to like the recruiter. He says like, "Where do you want to go? Like, you want to go flying? Like, yeah, I want flying. Like, okay, so first name Han, last name. He's like, I don't have a last name. Like, you don't have people. Solo. All right, there you go. And like. Makes sense, but at the same time, like, why would he keep the name the Empire gave him if he hates the Empire?
Yeah, that's one of the parts. Like, it actually, I will say this: at the end of the day, like, it is a decent way to actually get that across. But it is kind of like one of those ones. Like, he could have just been called Solo just right off the bat, and no worries there. You know what I mean? Like, I'll say it doesn't bother me at all. But yeah, I can kind of see it. Maybe it's just like after 3 years, you just kind of get used to it, and sometimes there's just certain like you could say the same thing. It's like with like Logan. You know what I mean? It's like, why does he keep that name? But it's just because, like, that's what he knows.
Well, Logan did his enemies give him the name Logan, though?
I thought it was given to him by, God, wasn't that given? I thought, because it's not his real name, so I thought it was given to him by the Weapon X plays.
Maybe it was a different name. Well, his name was originally Jimmy or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's James.
And I thought Logan was the name he went under to change his identity or something. Maybe I'm wrong there, but maybe it was given to him by Weapon X or something. But going back to this though, so then he's in Space Nom, and that's where he bumps into Woody Harrelson, and I'm forgetting her name, but she's in Westworld. She's a really good actress. She's in a lot of stuff. I'm drawing a blank on her name. She was in Run Fat Boy Run.
The Woody Harrelson's wife.
Yeah, I want to say that she was Condoleezza Rice in the W movie. I'm drawing a blank on her name. She's a really good actress, and I like her a lot, though. And then, so he bumps into them, and he finds out, oh, wow, those guys, they're not actual soldiers. Those guys they're trying to pull off some kind of heist here. I know, because Woody Harrelson's armor has a bunch of blast marks in it, and he's still walking around in it totally fine. Okay. Yeah. And then he joins them. And that's where, he tries to screw them over, he tries to blackmail them, that's where he bumps in with Chewie, and they get out there last minute, like, man, this guy keeps on coming back, this kid's got balls, let's just see what happens, let's bring him along for the ride.
And then they go into the cool, like, heist on the train thing that's running around the snow area, which is pretty cool.
That's a cool scene, like, yeah, so there's another thing that makes it feel kind of like a Western movie, because we get to have a train heist. And I always like train heists. People say they're a little tired of train heists. I always think train heists are fun. And,
I'm never tired about it because I just don't feel like they still happen that often enough. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they happen a lot in Westerns. I'm not going to say that they don't. It's kind of like a staple of a Western. But at the end of the day, like, okay, let's just say this. In the last 30 years, how many train heists have we really seen?
Not a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually, if we do see them, it's usually either in a Western or a sci-fi movie with Western elements.
Yeah, so it's like, they're still, like, rare enough, and it's like, yes, trains are always cool at the end of the day, because I think also, because once again, trains are barely used anymore, too, so something's always neat about a train, and if it's a space train, that's cool, too.
In all honesty, I think the last movie I saw that had a train heist may have been Priest. There's probably one before that, but the vampire movie Priest, which also stars Vision. So Vision's in this movie.
Yeah, Vision's in this one too. That movie and the Lone Ranger had that.
Oh yeah, Lone Ranger of course had a train heist. You can't do Lone Ranger without a train heist. That has to have a train heist.
Yeah, that one had like the extreme train heist where like horses.
That had like a Mario Kart train heist.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe how that was going down.
So going on to this, they do this train heist, and the like 6-armed monkey guy. I liked that guy, even though he wasn't in too long. I liked because I'll say these new Star Wars movies. I feel like even though I love the original Star Wars, I think the other ones now, like these ones, they have a little more time to how do I put this? Make the characters sound a little bit more natural to some extent. Does that make any sense? Even if the character is an alien or a CG character.
Yeah, and are you comparing this to the original trilogy or the prequels?
Both.
Okay.
I'm thinking here, like, because whenever you saw, like, the original Star Wars movies and prequels, they would have a tendency to just very much say what's on screen. Like, say what's going on. There wasn't a whole lot of nuance to them. Where I think whether you love or hate these new movies, I think they have a little bit more nuance to them, and they don't really always spell it out for you. They kind of leave some of it open to interpretation. Like, okay, like there's a scene in like Force Awakens that I really like. It's when Rey is she's like cleaning parts after a hard day's work, and she's kind of waiting for her family. And then she looks up and sees this old lady cleaning parts, and she's like crusty as fuck, but she's just cleaning these parts, just moving real quick. And she just stops and stares at this lady like, fuck, is that gonna be me like in 60 years? And the monster comes around like, get back to fucking work or whatever. And then she goes back to doing it. And I don't think that previous Star Wars movies have those kind of scenes. This movie has some of that, and I think like something like that, the little like 6-arm monster guy, like I think that when they did the original Star Wars movies, they're trying to take you to another world, so they wouldn't have characters who talk or act casually. They'd be a lot more like, I am the Glick-Glock of the Glick-Glock system or whatever, you know?
Well, I will say that's definitely true. Like, in the old Star Wars movies, it definitely feels more like a lot of the characters feel very, like, foreign and very outer space-like, where I will say in the Disney ones, they definitely do the thing where they try to make everybody feel kind of, like, a little bit more together, make it feel a little bit more American, a little bit more, like, I don't know. It does have that feeling, and I don't know whether that's a good or bad thing. I will say I do kind of like when things seem a little bit foreign and weird, where these ones, like, everybody seems to kind of have a little bit more similar dialect.
I would say that the things still seem foreign enough, but not to the degree of like, hey, did you see that? Did you hear that new Drake album? Nothing fucking like that.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't.
But I mean,
technically, because it's in the olden days anyway, so you wouldn't.
I know that in another galaxy, but I mean, it's one of those things where it still seems foreign enough, but at least kind of more relatable enough. Because when when Luke says something like, well, how am I going to get to the Ganashagash system without a T-16 hopper fighter? You know, you can piece together what the fuck he's saying, but it's one of those things for someone who's not. It's one of those things I think it is kind of like a wall for some people to get past.
Yeah, no, I can see that too, and I think that's where they make him a little bit more, I guess you would say, accessible with some of these characters. And at the end of the day, I think it's like a minor thing. It's like, I don't think it's like makes a movie bad or worse or anything like that. But I see what you mean, though, because I noticed that too. And I noticed in all like the new ones. There's a little bit different feel. It's just something about it's like it looks like Star Wars. It's got Star Wars elements, but there is just that. And I don't know. My thing always feels it has that feel that you see whenever you switch anything. Like, you don't have George Lucas there anymore. That's why the feel is slightly different. You know what I mean? It's just somebody else's slight different interpretation.
Well, it's also like there's the part, and go back to Force Awakens, when Kylo Ren sees that Rey is gone, so he loses his shit. He's like slashing up a room, and two stormtroopers walk, and one just kind of puts his arm in front of the other, and they just slowly turn around and walk the other way.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Like that kind of humor. You probably wouldn't have seen something like that in the other one. The other Star Wars movies would be more like someone calling someone else a laser brain or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, because I think George Lucas was always trying to make it feel like not at all like your own planet, your own home area. It was trying to feel like it was completely different. Like the dialect was different. Because I do notice that there is words that are in a lot of these new ones. Like, a perfect example was when Laura Dern in the last one, she was all like, she said Godspeed. And I felt like that seemed like an odd...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like one of those ones like, you couldn't have thrown anything out like, say, Force Speed. That would have been the thing to do. And I feel like that's what George...
Force Be With You. I think Force Be With You was...
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those ones like... There's actually a line like that. They say, I mean, I've heard, well, Han Solo said it before, but like they do say like, oh, like I'll see you in hell or something like that in this one. And that always seemed kind of odd too. It's like,
they know what hell is? Okay.
Yeah, it's just like, what I mean, like if they use hell like in like a word like, hell, like that seems different. But even still, swearing always felt kind of weird in Star Wars too. I don't know why. Like, even remember in like Empire Strikes Back, like when Han Solo does it, just seems kind of like, it slightly takes you out of the movie in an odd way. I don't know how else to explain it, but just that. But it just also is like in the new one, in the Solo movie, like when Woody Harrelson said, "Oh, we'll see you in hell" or whatever he did. It's like, well, that seems a little bit odd.
Well, I was thrown off in this and The Last Jedi, and this is when you know you've seen Star Wars maybe too many times and you pick up on this when they say ass in Star Wars for the first time, like they said ass in Star Wars, because he goes, I think Poe Dameron says, we gotta get through that big ass door, and then I think here once or twice they say get your ass out of there, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's a perfect example of just a slight interpretation different. When you don't have like the main person writing it or creating it or producing it or directing it, you're going to get that slightly different. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's never going to be 100% the same as the other person's vision. They're always going to have, well, even if they think that they're really close, there's going to be something just ever so slightly different that's going to happen.
It's like George Lucas is just sitting there watching this, like gritting his teeth, like, these fucking assholes. It's not called ass in a galaxy far, far away. It's called a waste hole. God damn it.
Yeah, like, shit. I gave him the books. I literally gave him the whole book that explained everything in it. Like, it was a big old thick, 10,000 page book, and they just clearly didn't read it, did they?
It's not called God, it's called the fucking Force, but that works too, whatever. So, yeah, I'm glad they read this fucking thing I gave them.
And I know these are like these are like the kind of things that somebody here be like, are you kidding me? Are you fucking nitpicking like these little things? I'm like, I don't know what it is. These are like the small things. Like, everybody else is focused on like the big stuff. Like, these are the small things that I feel like are like the ones like, overall I love the movies, but it's just these are like things like they're a little weird, just weird choices. That's all I'm saying. Does it make or break the movie? God, no, not at all. But you know what I mean?
It doesn't make or break it for me either. It's just one of those things, like, I just notice it. That's all.
It's noticeable. That's it. It's just, I guess I would say it sort of breaks the fourth wall just for a split second. And then you're back into the movie again.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I liked that character, and I kind of like, there's one of those things like, being a prequel, like, just about all these fucks are going to die, or at least go their separate ways at some point, with the exception of, like, Han and Lando. But, so I was like, I wasn't getting too attached to that character, but I liked him. And of course, they're going to make the most likable guy in the crew the one who dies, the first to die. So when he goes and Woody Harrelson's wife goes, because they get attacked by this group of marauders and in the middle of a heist, and because they're trying to steal hyperspace fuel and Han lets it go, they have to go back to, I forget the name of the actor, but he's the guy who played Vision. And he, even though he plays your evil businessman gangster, there's enough personality, enough there to make him entertaining to watch. He wasn't like just totally stroking a cat. Like, he still had like enough kind of things about him. Like, in some ways he was stereotypical, but there was enough quality about him that made him stand out from other kind of Star Wars villains like that,
Yeah, no, I thought he worked well, and I always liked that actor anyways. Maybe because he plays Vision too. That also helps, because that's one of my favorite Marvel characters. But no, I thought he did a good job, and he kind of played the good evil businessman, but he was still like, he still had compassion. You still could feel like he's the kind of guy that if you did everything right, life would be fantastic. You know what I mean? If you brought him what he needed and you did the jobs and you came back successful, things would be perfect. It's only when you start to like double cross and screw up that's when things are going to go down.
Yeah, and he just had one of those things where just like, he doesn't want to kill you. He's just like, you're my favorite guy. I don't want to kill you, but you put me in this position. How are you going to repay me? All right? How are you going to pay me? Like, how he can go from like that to that so quickly. But he was just, and he's not in the movie a whole lot, but I thought, he was a good main villain for this thing. And while they're at this party of all like these super, I guess a friend of mine said, did you get kind of a Casino Royale vibe of it? I'm like, I didn't until you kind of brought that up. It had a little bit of like, when he goes to that place, like, okay, so this feels kind of like the moment in the Bond movie where he meets the Bond girl. He's not really sure where her alliance lies, and they're kind of in like the business, the office of a very shady guy who's probably going to turn on him at some point, and that's where he bumps into the girl that he lost at the beginning of the movie, and he finds out that she worked her way up the ladder, and now she's the right-hand assistant to this guy.
And it's like, you said the Bond thing, like, I felt the Bond thing when I saw, like, when he was playing cards with Lando. Like, that's what I kind of felt like, it does kind of have that, like, maybe not like a full-on, like, Bond thing, but it did have that kind of stuff. But you could also say that's also a Western thing, too. So
that's what came to mind at the moment.
So you could kind of go both ways. But yeah, I like when he finds the girl there and so on. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's like, what the fuck are you doing here? It's like, I've been fucking out in space Vietnam, and you're here, like, fucking sucking down drinks and everything? Like, I clearly sucked the wrong dick.
Point me in the direction of that.
Yeah.
And then there's like some kind of like octopus monster with 8 dicks. Like, one of them, like, oh fuck.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, you sucked his dick and everything's good. That's what the Empire wanted you to do. That sounds like fucking like the Empire's what if she's opium. Like,
what if she's like that thing over there, just some big ugly looking monster? Like, fuck. Okay, goes in the bathroom. he walks out like, okay. Like, and she's collecting money. I was just bullshitting with you. No, I just sold you to that guy.
Yeah. But
Good seeing you again, Han. Bye. Credits.
the one thing I do like is in the movie, like, 'cause they never like explain it. At least not in this movie. Who knows? They might explain it in the second one or wherever they go to next. But they really explain like, yo, I did some shady stuff. So your mind can almost kind of wonder like where it's going. And when you see what kind of later on, it's like you don't. Oh, what the heck? You still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, cool. Something else just crashed in my computer, so I just wondered. Boom, out of the way, you. But she's like, oh, I did some shady stuff. So you're kind of like, oh, what'd you have to do to get here? Like, is she a hooker? Is she a drug dealer? Like, what is she being used for here? Like, what's going on? I like that. Which really, like, when you get towards the end, you realize it's like, oh, is she fucking Darth Maul? That was like the first thing.
She's fucking Darth Maul.
That was like, oh, is that where we're going to with this movie? Shit, is that how she got out of space prison?
It's easy for him. Easy for her. He doesn't have a dick no more. I mean,
maybe
shit,
he
I'd probably
does.
do the dark.
Maybe he's got
Maybe just a big robot dick.
Yeah, you never know.
They're they have the technology for that shit probably. The whole thing with that. So then he's like, okay, well here's the thing. We're gonna steal the exact same thing we were originally treating for you, but we're gonna get more of it. So it's a tricky situation because you need these special canisters, and without these special canisters, it explodes in a short amount of time. So you need a very fast ship. So what's gonna happen is you, lady, you're gonna go with Han, Woody, and Chewie. And you're gonna go meet Lando. You're gonna get in the Millennium Falcon from him, and you're gonna go pick this up from a mining facility, and then bring it back.
And it's got this weird thing too. You don't know that if Sarah Connor is trying to like, if she's like married or like dating or slave to Vision.
Mm-hmm. She has a tattoo, and she's just kind of like, I think it wouldn't surprise me if they fucked once or twice. But it's probably more likely one of those things like, oh, it's strictly business, and he like loves her kind of like a daughter, but a daughter he could kill if she fucks up at any point.
Yeah, and I don't think it's more like that. I feel like it's almost like you're my favorite escort, even though it's not saying she is one of those, but it's almost like that's what she's used for. She's the top chain of like what, and who knows how she had to work her way up that chain too, because there's like 3+ years that separates them between that. So it's that one where it's like maybe when she went to space jail, they pulled her out of it. And then from there on out, like she had to like work her way up, and who knows what she had to do. Start off selling drugs. Then she was a prostitute for a while, but then they let her like come into like the business and start selling drinks. And then the next thing you know, they put her on missions, and now she's like kind of like with Vision.
I got a feeling that what was I gonna say regarding her? I got a feeling they kind of did sort of imply what she did. Maybe unless it was like something years ago, because there's the point when they have to turn around where the Marauders come out, and you find the Marauders aren't bad guys, they're more freedom fighters that are trying to take back from this crime lord who took from them. And they said they went to the villages where they had this mineral or whatever, and they would take out the tongue of everybody who could talk. And the lady who was there talking for him, who was the leader, was a child who was born after the fact. So, well, actually, no, never mind. She would be too old. She was too young for that to happen in the first place. No, I'm thinking of something else. Yeah, I guess it is. For a second, I was thinking that she was part of that death squad. Then I was thinking, oh wait, that girl who's talking is too young for that. So never mind. Scratch that.
Oh yeah. I was going like, wait a second, I don't remember that part.
She was talking about like that's what the guy Vision was doing. He had a death squad of people that did that to their people, and the squad of people that did that to his people. Okay, fuck. This is what happens when we podcast later in the day. But anyway, I was thinking she was part of that. I'm like, oh wait, that could have happened too long ago, because this girl is clearly in her early teens or like mid-teens, or looked like she was in mid-teens, maybe like 20s or something. But yeah.
But yeah, so then they go off on the mission. Then they got to go find Lando because they need a ship, of course. And that's where they have this kind of like Casino Royale, like space poker. Because that's always how it feels in Star Wars. You never like, it's not poker, it's space poker.
And this, they're not really, we don't see them become good friends. We see them be kind of like distant with each other and very like putting on a face, but never really trusting each other, never really getting along too much. But that's probably for like a later movie, I guess. Yeah,
because it sounds like that by this standard, I don't know if they're going to try to do a trilogy with the Solo one. I mean, if they did the weird thing where it like sort of combined into like the Boba Fett movie, I could see that kind of working out. You know what I mean? Because I don't feel like that'd be... I feel like Boba Fett and Han's relationship, it's like, it's never like they're like, hey, who are you? You know, like an Empire or anything like that. So I feel you could almost have like a weird shit because does Han Solo and Boba Fett really even see each other in Empire? It's like
not in Empire, but I guarantee they've probably crossed paths sometimes. They both take a lot of jobs from Jabba.
Yeah.
And what I bet, well, there's even like, I mean, there's the there's the special edition where Han's like, hey, what the fuck you doing with my ship? And like Boba Fett's there with Jabba the Hutt.
Oh yeah. There is that part too. I forgot about that one. But yeah, so like okay, there is a little bit there, but there's a I mean like I could see them like being in that next Han Solo movie being almost like a mixture of like it's a Boba Fett movie, you got Lando in there, and it's Han Solo, and we're gonna figure out what the hell Darth Maul's doing.
Yeah. So basically, what ends up happening is they go to the spice mine with the ship because you have to go through a really hard, like rigorous nebula where a bunch of like just crazy space shit and monsters and debris live, and they get there, they get the shit, they lose Lando's sidekick / SJW bot in the process, and then they have to outdo the Kessel Run, which the Kessel Run was one of those things like, I always expected the Kessel Run to be something different. I expected the Kessel Run to be like a, I don't know, for some reason I was expecting it to be like a race. I don't know, like some kind of competition.
That's what I thought too. Like I will say the Kessel Run was way different than I thought it was going to be. Like I didn't realize it's like, oh, what the Kessel Run was literally going from this planet back there with space gas, and being able to deliver it in time. It's like, oh, that's what the delivery was. It was like how fast you can deliver something. Like I don't know. Like I always felt like, and it sounds weird. I always felt like it would have taken place like I don't know, somewhere else even. Like I didn't expect just to kind of. I don't know. Maybe I just had weird, different like ideas of how that thing went, and
well, it's probably a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is probably George Lucas throwing words together back in like 76 or 75 when he was writing it, and he was just like, Kessel Run. Yeah, that sounds sci-fi-ish. Whatever. All right, moving on. And then like you said, like fought in the, maybe this was a little bit more planned out, but like Clone Wars. All right, cool, whatever. Yeah. And then, like years later, people, what is the Clone War? They see what the Clone Wars is, or
Yeah, exactly. So there's those kind of elements there, and maybe that's what it's all kind of getting to. But yeah, it's like, and then of course you got fucking Lando's robot lady. Like, there's one scene I thought was fucking weird too, where like this is like one of those perfect like examples. It almost reminds me it's totally a Disney joke because it almost feels like it could have been in like a Marvel Universe movie. And there's a part where like she's cutting through the fence, and she's like, you can't look at me. Don't look at me when I do this. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I feel your eyes on me. It's like, how does a robot feel eyes on it? That's all I was thinking. I was just like, that's clearly like not good writing right there. And it's like, what is she doing? Like whipping her dick out and fucking like cutting through that thing? It's like, that was fucking weird.
Transbot? Yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like that kind of stuff. Like, that's like one of those scenes. It's like, that could have been cut. You could literally just cut that scene and the movie would be like, fine. Like, there's no reason for that scene.
I think that was just something like, we need a comedy beat right here. Well, the thing about this movie is, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to look. I mean, all the hows and whys you don't entirely know, but it doesn't take a lot of effort to know that this movie was going through production hell. Like, they switched out the guys who made the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street out for Ron Howard at the last minute. And because those guys are over budget, they were apparently shooting a lot more improvised comedic scenes, which I think works for like a 21 Jump Street movie. Probably not this though.
Yeah, so, Star Wars you have comedy in Star Wars, but you got to be very delicate with the comedy in Star Wars. That's how I sort of feel.
Mm-hmm. And one of the ways they actually, I feel like one of the ways they really try and get across the whole like trans thing was not the trans thing, SJW thing. I'm sure they're not too far away from that either, though. Eventually, the movies are pretty left leaning, but was when she tries to throw up the whole robot revolution. It's almost more treated as a joke, kind of.
Yeah, that part's kind of a little bit. I mean, like, it's the weird thing. It's like that robot character, I feel like, is 2 steps away from being totally fine, but then they find a way to do some goofy shit with it that makes it kind of like weird. It's like the only like kind of like if you like almost like, as I say, it's the Jar Jar character of the movie in a sense. And I'll say this, I like Jar Jar more than I like this robot character, but that's just me. But it is one of those ones, like, I just feel that character is just, it's not that it's weird that, like, Lando has a robot with, really, at the end of the day, I think he should have had his Mexican buddy with him. I don't know why the fuck he had the robot. You know what I mean? Like, where the
You
fuck
mean
was
the guy
it?
had a pussy for the guy had a pussy for a face?
Yeah, he just he always looked like a Mexican guy to me, but
Well, he just has those big giant lips and those flaps that kind of hang out. So I'm just like one of those things. Lando's just like, hey man, it's been a long ride. Let me fuck your face.
just picture that instead. Like, it's that guy, and he's talking to fucking Sarah Connor. He's all like, I think Lando's trying to fuck me.
Well, the thing is, after the subtitles, like, oh,
that's right. Yeah, you would have had that. Well, that's the thing though. There's not tons of characters in this that have like subtitles as much. Like, I feel like they've kind of minused that down a little bit too in Star Wars movies recently.
Well, they have the one thing where Han speaks in Wookiee for a second, and that's what kind of saves him from getting killed by Chewbacca.
Yeah, which it's like I get it because Han Solo's always understood Chewbacca, but it was almost like a weird way to present it too at the same time. It's like one of those ones. It's like, I guess that's what you have to do to get that across. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe there's a different way to do it, but I guess that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyway, as it goes on though, so because here's the thing about the movie. It's a very straightforward movie, and we can go into, this happens in the middle of the spice mine, this happens in the middle of the Kessel Run, but truth be told, it's just a lot of big action scenes that are all pretty cool, but it just, might as well just see the movie, because then it'll just be us talking about, and then they have to go back and get this thing, because they dropped it, and then the Falcon, that'll just become that. So then, short and simple of it, they do the Kessel Run, they barely get out of there, they come back to the planet, and the ship's barely running, and they got the Marauders there waiting for him. And this is where the movie suddenly just does, out of nowhere, a bunch of, like, laying down the groundwork for potential sequels, which I still thought it was a fun movie, but this is where a little bit more of the Western vibe came in. Just the, all the guys there together, like, who's going to screw over who we're all kind of going after the same goal here, over the same treasure.
Well, the cool thing, too, is in one of those, in, like, the pirate gang or whatever, like, one of the guys is the main character from Willow. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was cool,
because that guy, I feel like, hasn't been in a movie forever. It was just like, oh.
He was also Wiccan.
Yeah, he was Wiccan as well, too. But he's in a costume, so I just feel like I think of him from Willow, because he's literally the main character in that one. I thought that was awesome.
And it's fitting, because Ron Howard directed this, and Ron Howard
directed
Willow. And Willow was like, George Lucas, like, people talk about this fucking Lord of the Rings shit. I got something else for you. It's called Willow, bitch. How you like that?
Yeah. And I will say this. I think Ron Howard, though, is about... If there was the perfect second choice, if you can't have George Lucas making the movie, I really think Ron Howard is definitely the best second choice that you can have. The only other person to be just as good second choice is Steven Spielberg. Like, because I feel like those guys would all get the George Lucas kind of, like, vibe kind of going on. You know what I mean? So it's like... I mean, granted, this movie's kind of one of those ones, it's not 100% Ron Howard, so you can kind of probably say, like, well, I see where it's not Ron Howard and so on. It'd be interesting just to let Ron Howard have 100% control of a Star Wars movie.
I'll say this. All these... I mean, I saw... When we went to go see Force Awakens, I definitely saw some J.J. Abrams in there. But everything else, I can't really see that director of whoever's making it. I didn't see any Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi. The other guy who made Rogue One, never really saw any of his previous stuff, so I don't really know what to look for that.
Wasn't the guy that did Godzilla?
Oh, yeah, he did the new Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then the guy who did this guy, Ron Howard, I really couldn't see all the Ron Howardness to it. It just felt like a new, like, what's essentially what we know as a new Star Wars movie.
Well, I think it's kind of done almost like TV directing, where it's not just because you get a director who comes in doesn't mean the show is going to completely radically change. You know what I mean? You still got to follow the Star Wars format, and I think that's kind of fine. But there is just sort of things like I feel like Ron Howard, just the idea of him being there, just kind of goes like, yeah, that's the guy you need, because that's 100% like someone who would understand George Lucas's ideas. You know what I mean?
Him or Joe Johnson.
Yeah, was Joe Johnson on George Lucas movies?
Oh, he created the AT-AT.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
He was a visual effects guy, and then eventually he went and did Rocketeer, and did some Steven Spielberg produced stuff. And I mean, he directed Jurassic Park 3.
Oh yeah, that's right. He did Jurassic Park 3 as well too. Okay. I was just thinking for a second. I forgot he was the visual effects guy on there, and
Jumanji.
Oh yeah, he did Jumanji as well too. He got a bunch of good movies under his belt and so on. But another thing that I thought was kind of neat too is when they were freeing the slaves, I guess, on that planet. I know this goes back a little bit there, but then there was like Wookiees there, so like Chewbacca like had to go free some of his guys from the Empire, because that was like the first thing I guess the Empire was like, we need some manual labor.
These guys look big and strong. Take them. Yeah.
Big, strong, and furry.
Yeah, when we're done, we can make coats out of them. Dude, we just saw that 101 Dalmatians movie. That bitch had the right idea.
Yeah, we'll make a rug out of it.
Imagine how nice to be on a comforter. No, no, it's one of those things where thinking back on this movie, what was I going to say regarding this? It's one of those things. Thinking back on it, I think it. I've heard a lot of people complain about it. Han Solo doesn't have a lot of depth or anything. But I don't think he really ever did. He never really seemed to be that complex of a guy. He always seemed to be the guy who doesn't want to be there, and he's not a bad guy. He tries to cross his arms and pretend like he doesn't give a shit, but then when push comes to shove, he's going to roll his eyes and do what's right and then leave.
Yeah, and that's how I kind of felt too. And this one still was like, this reminded me like it was sort of like optimistic Han Solo, and I think as time goes on, he's going to become more the burnt out, like, I want to, like, he becomes like almost like Dad Han Solo, where he's just like, I don't want to fucking be here. Got shit to do in the garage. What do you mean you want me to go to your T-ball game?
Yeah.
But then he still shows up at the end of the day. Like at the end, it's like there's my dad over there drinking a 6-pack.
Oh, he fucking lost.
Yeah, and because that's sort of like how it is. Because in this one, he's more like, I'm gonna get myself a spaceship. It's gonna be awesome. I got a Wookiee best friend. You know what I mean? Like, the galaxy's gonna be, anything I want it to be. Because, in, like, the old Star Wars movies, it's more like, what the fuck you want, kid?
I did like when they went back to because when they got the stuff distilled, because essentially what happens is the Marauders are there waiting for him, and they say, look, we know you guys have a job, but essentially, we don't give a fuck if you have a job, because this guy took everything from us, so give us what's rightfully ours. And Han Solo agrees to it, and then what's his name? Woody Harrelson. We didn't really talk about Woody Harrelson.
And he's fucking amazing in this movie too. It's like Woody kills it like he does in anything.
Yeah, he's just awesome. And he, when Woody Harrelson comes in, well, he essentially, he has this idea of like, look, I'm a scoundrel. I am more of a scoundrel than you, Han Solo. So don't even try to beat me at that. But I like you. So if worst comes to worst, I will betray you. I don't want to, but I will if it means me saving my life.
Mm-hmm.
So don't do anything fucking stupid. And Han Solo's like, well, we don't give a shit. We got to help these people out. And that guy, what's his name? Benedict or something like that. Beckham. I think his name's Beckham. Something like that. He ends up selling them out to Vision. Vision finds out him and like then that's where it turns into like Reservoir Dogs for a second, where everybody in the room is pointing guns at each other, and Woody sneaks away with the shit, and then Han has a little bit of a fight with Vision. He kills Vision, and then the girl. What I like is I was expecting some shit, like some major heartbreak to happen with him and the girl.
Yeah.
But in this time, it's almost like he's almost accepted it. It's not like, oh no, everything I fought for, I did it all for the girl. Why? It's just like, fuck. Right, on to something else now, I guess.
Well, I like it. It's kind of like a slow one. It's like almost like when he's like, oh my god, we can get the fuck out of here. Let's do it. She's like, I got work. You can't do that. And then it's like as it kind of goes on, he tries again. Like, come on, once we do this job, we'll be good. We get out of there. And it's almost like a buildup of like he tries. It's kind of like, I guess it's not working out.
Yeah, and then once she actually lies with the whole situation. She says that because Darth Maul comes in on a hologram. And that's where she says, "Oh yeah, so sorry, sir, but everything went to shit. This guy got away. I don't know what to tell you." It's like, okay, well, you'll be working with me a lot sooner now that guy's dead. You're new in command. Ha 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 ha. He doesn't laugh. Like he's Mandark.
Yeah. He's a man ball. That sounds fucking well. Man Maul. It's like his father. My father was Man Maul.
Man Maul.
That was before they started using the term. He said that the term Darth was too pussy. He wanted to be called Man in front of his name.
Well, it was kind of funny when I went to go see this movie because, a lot of people, I'm sure they'll explain it when they bring him back, but I never really saw Clone Wars with him in it, but I know he's in that because he apparently didn't die. He just got cut in half and fell to the bottom of a pit and survived, and has robot legs. It was kind of funny because like when he took off his hood, I heard a bunch of people in the audience go, and then there's some ladies like, I thought he fucking died. And I heard the boyfriend behind me just like, oh no, so what happened is he got his legs off, and then he used all his force power to like make robot legs, and it was in the Clone Wars cartoon. So I just got the whole explanation of how he's alive right in my ear.
I always hate when people do that. It's like, shut the fuck up. Just like talk after the movie, damn it.
I already kind of knew. I was like, oh, whatever, you know. I was kind of expecting that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it is with these kind of movies. You just kind of expect that, like, you're going to have some idiots show up to them, but whatever. You know, but
go ahead, sorry.
At the end of the day, though, just the Darth Maul part, to me, that made it more than, like, almost, if that was the only takeaway from this movie, that in itself was so cool. Because it's just, like, finally, it just reminds me, like, they're finally going to be leading back into, like, that kind of stuff, hopefully. You know what I mean? Hopefully we could start getting more prequel-oriented material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought that was it was just one of those things, like, for me, Darth Maul was never a problem to the prequels. He was never the problem. I think that there's nothing wrong with trying to go back, and if most people don't like something, going back and trying to, all right, well, let's improve upon this. So let's try and present it a different way, and maybe people will like it this time around.
I think I wouldn't use the word that most people don't like it, because I don't think that's true.
All right, half. You hear it a lot.
Yeah,
like maybe it's a half.
I'll go with half. Half I think is right, because I think there's still a lot of people that do like the prequels a lot too.
Mm-hmm. And but it's one of those things. I never thought Darth Maul was a problem. So if they never bring Jar Jar back, I get that. But I don't see anything wrong with bringing back a character like Darth Maul, or having them stomp on Naboo, or going back to Mustafar, or something like that.
Exactly. That's just what I want. I just want more, like, references at least to it. Like, yeah, let's use Naboo for something. You know, let's have Darth Maul. Like, if we're gonna do these, like, kind of standalone pictures, let's do a Qui-Gon fucking, like, movie. Like, why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who knows? They'll probably, you know, they're talking about bringing Ewan McGregor back for a solo Obi-Wan movie.
That'd be kind of cool too. You know what I mean? Well, that's the thing, is there's so many possibilities of, like, what you can do. I feel that almost the key thing is almost like finish episode 9 and then, like, maybe don't come back to that for a while and literally just do a bunch of, like, kind of I mean, they'll probably just do 10. They'll probably keep doing them until that fucking cash starts coming in. I'm gonna keep making the fucking Star Wars movies because all the fucking assholes are gonna keep showing up no matter what.
I need to make me 5 more cocaine mansions.
So, like, I mean, like, I feel like they'll probably just keep making the numbers climb and climb and climb till then. But I would almost rather have them just go, like, okay, stop at 9 for a bit, and let's just go back and just do, like, old-timey stuff and all these, like, in-between stories, and why not?
Maybe they're trying to reach out to the audience that were complaining about the lack of prequel stuff by showing Maul at the very end.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what it finally did, because probably it's like one of those ones, like, granted that the prequel people aren't nearly as loud as, like, the non-prequel people, I guess, but at the end of the day, they probably still got a lot of stuff like, yo, what the fuck? Why aren't we getting any prequel stuff in here? Where's, like, the Clone Wars stuff? Where's, you know, like, lightsabers and shit? Like, we want this back. Like, we get it. Like, yeah, you know, episode 7, that's fine if that one's kind of like, okay, that one can just harken back to, you know, New Hope, and we'll just be fine with that. But once that one's kind of done, like, let's get back to regular Star Wars now.
I'll say this, I said it back when Last Jedi came out. I think Star Wars fans expect too much from a lot of shit. I think that it's just this thing that has too many... You got too many people. You got people that came in on the prequels as fans. You got people that came in as original fans. You got younger people who became a fan of Star Wars through Clone Wars and the Rebels cartoon. That's how my youngest nephew knows Star Wars. I mean, he knows there's an old movie, but he mainly knows through the Clone Wars cartoon. So I think you have too many people, and then people that mainly grew up watching, or not watching, but reading the expanded universe books and like that more than the source material. So it's one of those things where people just get, I think, people get picky about their version of Star Wars, and now that they're not going with it, I think they get very irritated. I think people just take it too seriously at the end of the day, I feel like.
I think so, and I think the key thing about Star Wars is just, like, you just gotta be like, hey, they're making new Star Wars movies? Cool. We could not have Star Wars movies. It comes back to, like, the beginning of this podcast about just being fucking optimistic about the shit you get and being grateful for actually getting something than getting nothing. You know what I mean? Like, here's a small thing. When fucking Sarah Connor in this movie, we really gotta figure out what her name is, because calling her Sarah Connor sounds fucking weird.
I think it's Kara or Kyra.
Kyra, something like that. Well, I like when she does, even though it's kind of, they do it in a weird way because you don't really get to see it, but she, like, judo flips a guy over, and, like, the fucking, I almost said lesbian robot, but the fucking freedom fighting robot.
bot.
Yeah, that bot. She literally, like, says, what was that? She's like, oh, that's Masters of Terra Casa. And I was like, what? That's fucking awesome. Or Terra Casey, or whatever it is. Casey.
So is that the like Phantom Menace, like
it's not Phantom Menace, it's before that still, but yeah, it's the Star Wars fighting game.
Oh, that's right.
So when they threw that name out there, now granted that name probably comes from, like, an expanded universe book or something way before it was called a video game, but that was like, I was like, oh shit, there you go, there's at least a name drop.
Well, I'm curious because crime syndicate in the movie is called the Crimson Sunrise or Sunset, something like that. And there's a crime syndicate called the Black Sun, which is in a lot of the expanded universe, and that's like the main villain of the Shadows of the Empire game and book.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm wondering if this is gonna, link into that somehow, because Darth Maul, there's this expanded universe comic book that takes place before Phantom Menace at a friendly borrow, a comic book where Darth Maul goes and kills the main leader of the Black Sun, and then later though it picks back up and someone else takes over it.
Huh, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, I that's my kind of goal. Like, is for these future Star Wars movies, I hope they kind of start using like the expanded universe stuff and really actually kind of making those kind of cool stories. Like, as I always say, Shadows of the Empire. Just make that one. Maybe it doesn't have to be 100% like, to the book accurate or whatever, or even to the video game, because in the video game Dash Rendar doesn't die, which I kind of like that a little bit more. But it would just be cool to see these legendary Star Wars stories that have been around for 20 and 30 years. Finally, like, let's do it. Let's we'll make a movie about it. Almost like in the DCU sense of like, we're making Dark Knight Returns and we're making the Killing Joke and so on. Like, it'd be cool if they finally said like, yeah, let's do that. You know what I mean? Like, we did a little bit of our own variety, but let's go back and actually start doing, like, what was already presented beforehand and just adapting it. You know what I mean? Like, let's take the legendary stories and really, like, expand on them.
I'm going to say something here that's not that original. I'm sure someone else has said it by now. But I think it would be amazing if... Shit, I'll say it. Episode 8. Or maybe another Star Wars movie. Because, yeah, I could do... I'm going to say Episode 8 because...
You mean 9?
9, yeah, 9. Because Han Solo was roughly the same age as this guy, so he'd still be alive. Makes sense. Dash Rendar, played by Kurt Russell.
Yeah, that'd be awesome right there. And then you could come back and do the Dash Rendar, like, origin story, with Shadows of the Empire.
I remember that was the thing when I first played this game. Like, it's a Star Wars game for the N64. That's amazing. Well, who the fuck is this guy? It's not Han Solo and it's not Luke. All right, whatever. I'll figure it out. Because it was weird. You were just playing as the side character. You weren't playing as the main character.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of how it is. But that's like, I don't know, Dash Rendar, I know he's kind of like, in a sense, like a Han Solo sort of like, he's like the Ken to like, if Han Solo was Ryu, but still, it's like one of those ones, like, I've always liked that character a lot. And I think there's just a lot of things you can do. Like, another example is Rogue Squadron. There's enough cool stuff in there that you could do a Biggs and Wedge movie where they're fucking just flying around doing missions, and that's what the movie's all about. It's like fucking Top Gun, but Star Wars, you know what I mean?
Or Jack, don't get too attached to like, if it's Dak 2, don't get attached to like 2/3 that team.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, though. It's like there's just so much cool stuff, and I know I'm pulling from video games, but that's where my expanded universe knowledge mostly comes from. Or once again, Knights of the Old Republic. That's the other ones. Like, why not do that kind of stuff? And I think hopefully as time goes on, that's what we get to. I think at first we're making the movies that are more geared towards the older audience. That's who they're trying to. There's almost the people that are 40 and up. I feel like that's the target audience right now at the moment. But after they get a handful of their movies out of the way, I think we can start appealing to like the people 20 and up, you know what I mean? And people in their 40s obviously probably knew a lot of the expanded universe stuff too, but the people that have like from the 90s and 2000s of Star Wars. That's what I'm looking at.
I don't want to change anything too drastically. We just don't want Dash Rendar, so I just went on Google Images, looked up pictures of Dash Rendar. I never noticed this before, but this is something that I'm just like, oh wow. Remember Killmonger from Black Panther?
Uh-huh.
His outfit looks a lot like Dash Randar's outfit.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting to think about.
Little like hold up comparison picture, just so yeah.
And I'm kind of looking. I have the Dash Rendar action figure on my wall. I can kind of look over at it.
Yeah, I'd like to see that guy come back. I know he's just kind of like, it was just kind of like, man, our roguelike guy, he's in a carbonite thing. Don't worry, I'm here. Oh, cool. All right, never mind. We're good. Dude, you want to stay?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess he died. I guess we gotta go save him now. All right.
And that's like one of those ones too where you could get somebody to come in and play like a younger Luke Skywalker. If you don't have Luke Skywalker in it for that much, I guess you could do the CG Mark Hamill if you wanted to. But I think at the end of the day, that's one of those ones where you could just get a guy to play Luke Skywalker. No different than like the guy playing Han Solo in this one for the Shadows of the Empire movie.
Mm-hmm. what was the Dash Rendar ship? The Outrunner or
I
something?
think
It was
I
kind of
think
like
that's exactly what it was called. It was the Outrunner.
It was the knockoff Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, I know. It had like sort of the side angle on it, like it was like a halfway built one.
Yeah, that's right. Well, no, I'm just looking at the thing now because I see a picture of the toy. And then, Millennium Falcon was this giant, monstrous beast. Just this giant fucking ship that was, like, in proper scale to the characters. This thing has a big old cockpit, and just the rest of it's just like, is this what we can sell for $15?
Yeah, exactly. You put the action figures in here, and he runs around in a circle in there. Good enough.
Yeah, it's just a jogging course in there.
Yeah. That's what Dash needs, but yeah, no, it's like I just look forward because really at the end of the day, I feel like I like the Star Wars story movies or the side story movies almost more than the 7, 8, and 9.
That's kind of how I'm feeling because I thought this was I wasn't blown away by this movie, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was a fun movie, and I like it more than I don't know if I like it more than Force Awakens, but I like it more than Last Jedi, and I definitely Rogue One is my favorite of the 4 movies so far.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Rogue One is by far, because that's the one that actually did kind of blow me away. I'll say that, like, Solo was a very solid movie. It didn't blow me away, but it was just very solid. Like, there's really nothing you could complain about. It was a good movie all the way through, even with a couple of, like, just the minor slow parts. They didn't really break it down. Oh, you know what else I thought was kind of funny? Is another weird cameo in that movie, is they had the guy from Better Off Dead, the friend, the weird nerdy guy. Mm-hmm. He was in there at, like, the robot, like, battle arena.
Oh, I wonder if he was ever anything Ron Howard made. Maybe,
because I noticed, I'm like, oh my god, that guy's in there. And I just always think of Better Off Dead. I know he's in a bunch of other stuff, too, and you see him all over, but that's the one where he's like...
but one surprise the least... Oh, go ahead.
I just always think of him snorting snow. He's like, snow, it's pure snow! It's just like, yeah.
I know the street value of this mountain!
It's like almost like such a dumb joke, but that's like you still laugh.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I love that movie.
Yeah.
I love that movie. Well, plus it's also a movie about like, hey, a guy is so sad that his girlfriend left him. It's a funny movie about suicide.
That's really what it is. The other day, it's a guy who's trying to kill himself, and that's all it is. It's almost like he tries over it. That could be like a very dark drama. You know what I mean? Where like. There's a part like where he goes to hang himself in the garage, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it." And he goes to hang himself, and his mom like opens the door, and he's like fucking falls over into it, like, oh.
Well, there's the part where he's gonna light himself on fire. He has like a thing of like I think gasoline or something.
He's gonna rage against the machine himself.
Yeah, he's gonna do it like a Vietnamese monk in protest. And then, he's called to dinner, and then, they're having a big table there. Some lady chugs it, thinking it's alcohol. Like, oh, yeah, that hits a spot. She puts a cigarette in his mouth, lights it, and then
blows her face.
Explosion out, from the window. Then cuts to him in the car. Sorry, your mom's face blew up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I just like about that movie. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like there's no other movie that is like Better Off Dead. I know that has nothing to do with fucking Star Wars.
Well, the guy, the goofy ass.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was wondering where that all started to come from, but you know what I mean. It's like there's just something.
We gotta do a Better Off Dead retrospect at some point.
I know. I actually watched that movie not too long ago, and I was just like, 'cause I hadn't seen it in a while. I'm like, yeah, such a fun
Somebody
movie.
threw away a perfectly good white boy.
There's just so much. As I said, like I just don't feel like there's not another comedy that I feel like they would pair up and be like equally in the same category as that. Like, yeah, there's other teen comedies, but not the way that this one plays. This one doesn't play like any other. It's extraordinarily original, but that's a conversation for another time. Till then, Han Solo, I thought was fucking sick. It's one of those ones like. It seems like this movie's not going to have nearly the like backlash that episode 8 did. Not going to say that everybody's going to come out of it being like, oh, it's so great, but I feel like it's going to be just a dead center movie. Like most people are going to kind of walk out and being like, yeah, that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I heard kind of like people walking out saying it was okay. Then I saw it, I'm like, oh no, I thought it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. So it's not anything that's going to really. I think because the thing is it's answering some questions about who he is, which is kind of a tricky thing to do in itself because he's like one of fiction's most beloved characters. But on top of that, it's also not going. It's just kind of an adventure movie. It's not answering anything too deep. It's not answering like Luke. It's not like Luke Skywalker like dying at the end and kind of like, was he being a pussy or was he actually dying honorably? You know what I mean? That's a debate I've heard people have a lot. So
Yeah, well, he said he wasn't leaving the fucking island. He's staying by his fucking word. I don't think that's a pussy.
he's a man of his word.
Yeah, exactly. Shit, like, I ain't fucking leaving this island. Luke fucking...
So
who the fuck are you, woman?
You could just hear people say that, like, it's one of those things where they were trying to piss off old fans. Like, they were adamantly trying to piss off old fans. Like, I don't know if they're adamantly trying to piss off old fans, but whatever. I could see him, like, people complaining enough about it to where, where that's where he starts to joke back on Twitter. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, fuck it. I hate Star Wars. There, I fucking said it. Fuck you. Just to piss this guy off,
Yeah, exactly. But,
I could see that.
But that's probably a good place to wrap it up at. If not, we'll go on forever talking Star Wars, because it was fun, and I look forward to really the other ones. I don't know when episode 8's supposed to come out. Since this one came out in May, are they always going to come out in May now? Or...
I think it's just a weird one. I think that we're going to...
Or is the next one coming out this Christmas?
Not this Christmas, because the last one came out last Christmas. So it's going to be Christmas after or May after. We'll see.
Well, that's the only reason I say that, though, is just because it's like every other one. So is there an in-between movie, or is there actually just going to be a longer gap for some reason?
Well, I mean, I think that it's just some movie that's going to come out next year. They're going to come out yearly. It's not really... I don't know if they're going to pay too close attention to the season of it.
Okay, so maybe that's what's kind of going on then. But, yeah, interesting stuff all around. So, yeah, good stuff to look forward to. But other than that, check out oldmanorange.com for more comics, podcasts, videos, animations, and more. Check out Pizza Boy is the comic, Pizza Boys with a Z, anywhere that comics are sold online. Well, not anywhere, but, the big places. Until then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
We will see you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Be sure to check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comics, animations, videos, and a whole lot more. You can easily support the show by buying something from one of our Amazon links on the website or in the show's description itself. Doesn't cost you a penny, but every single thing you buy from there just by using that link to take you to Amazon helps us out a bit. You can also really help the show out, though, by spreading the word the good old-fashioned way, and rate and review us on all the sites that you find this podcast. Anything from iTunes to Podbean to Newgrounds, YouTube, you name it, any little bit helps. Give a sub and share it to your friends, family, any jamoke you see out on the street, you let them know about Old Man Orange podcast. And be sure to check out the Old Man Orange comic book Pizza Boys on both Amazon and Comixology. Till then, we'll see you some other time.